City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 6th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 3 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 2. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ottawa's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Vera Etches, has sent a joint letter with top doctors in Toronto and Peel to implement further restrictions province-wide, including stay-at-home orders to stem the spread of the coronavirus. We'll have more with Dr. Etches coming up very shortly on the Rob Snow Show. With more on this story first, though, here's City News reporter Eric O'Brien.
Alongside the stay-at-home order, the 3 top doctors are asking the province to implement travel restrictions between regions, funds for paid sick days, and schools moving online. According to Ottawa's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Vera Etches, despite being in favor of keeping schools open, Ottawa Public Health will be reviewing COVID data locally.
There's a qualifier there. It's about what's happening locally in the schools. So that's what we're looking at, what's happening in Ottawa. We do want to keep schools open as much as possible because of the supports that they provide to students and families and workplaces so people can work. We've heard now multiple times about the distress that's caused when schools close down, and we do want to avoid that outcome if we can.
Etches says when looking at the surge in COVID-19 cases in the capital, it's not the same as last year because now the majority of cases are variants. She says the B117 UK variant, for example, the risk of ICU admissions is about 2 times higher and the risk of death is about 1.5 times higher. She says the virus has changed and so must our behaviors. Eric O'Brien, City News.
City News time at 9:01. Now, schools in Ottawa continue offering in-person learning this week for the 4 days. And then next week, of course, is the delayed March break. But many, including a city councillor, for example, and a school board trustee, are opting to stick to remote learning for their children. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Ottawa's French and English Catholic boards, along with its English Public Board, are encouraging students and staff to bring home essential materials as kids head back to class today. The spring break plan for April 12th to 16th is set to go ahead as scheduled. Taking to Twitter, Ottawa Carleton District School Board trustee Mark Fisher says the board should decide now to shift to a virtual learning environment this week for everyone's well-being and safety, and the status can be re-evaluated following the break. Fisher and his wife are also opting for remote learning for his kids. Somerset Ward's Catherine McKenney is also choosing to have their child learn from home, not only for their well-being, but for the health and safety of staff at risk of contracting COVID-19. The councillor explains while it was ultimately the right decision for their family, they understand some families in Ottawa might not be in a position to make a stay-at-home decision. Alex Gouge, City News.
Now, if you are between the ages of 60 and 64, you're able to book your appointment for a vaccine in the Outaouais region, and that began at 8 o'clock this morning. So the area's health unit says it's for anyone born in 1961 or earlier. The process can be done online, though residents can call phone lines, too, if they're having any difficulty. City News time at 9:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Not a whole lot of weather activity around the Ottawa area today. Mainly sunny, our high 15 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy and low 3, and tomorrow, sunshine and up to 18. The average high about 9 degrees. For today, the high 15.
Right now in Ottawa, it's 3 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 2. The doctor charged with murder in last month's death of a man at the Hawkesbury Hospital returns to court today. 35-year-old Dr. Brian Nadler charged with 1 count of first-degree murder. Now, police have accused him in the March 25th death of an 89-year-old man from Pointe Claire, Quebec, who was in that hospital. Provincial police also investigating several other suspicious deaths at Hawkesbury Hospital. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
When the headlines say X,
he's got the Y.
it's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
At 3:45 this afternoon, U.S. President Joe Biden is going to announce that every American adult will be eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine by April 19th. Every American over the age of 18, 13 days from now, can get a shot. My father is 73 years old. He lives in Nova Scotia and doesn't even have an appointment to get his first dose yet. So good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News. We have a big show ahead for you. Yeah, that news about Biden's announcement coming this afternoon, that broke within the last hour or so. CNN has the story this morning headlined, Biden set to announce he's moving deadline for all U.S. adults to be eligible for COVID vaccine to April 19th. Quoting from the story, Biden will announce that every adult in the country will be eligible to be vaccinated by April 19th, according to an administration official, instead of Biden's original deadline of May 1st. It goes on, Biden is, quote, expected to say that 150 million doses of the coronavirus vaccine have been administered within his first 75 days in office, in line with a stated goal of 200 million shots by his 100th day in office. He will also, quote, tout how the U.S. reported more than 4 million doses of coronavirus vaccine administered in a single 24-hour period last weekend. End quote. That is CNN. This is CNN. Imagine 4 million doses a day. In one day. We've done 6.5 million in 113 days in this country. In the United States, everyone over the age of 18 qualifies for a first vaccine shot less than 2 weeks' time. Here in this country, there will be no such statements today. Trudeau will do his 11:30 dance. The Daily Doug is at 1 o'clock. Whatever they say, I guarantee you, none of it will sound anything like that. Mr. Trudeau, 11:30, will carry some of that for you. I can only take it in small doses. Mr. Trudeau is running a government that was once accused, remember, it was accused of being a hoarder of vaccine. Running a government that promised Canadians, you'd have access to so many doses of vaccine, you could all be vaccinated 3, 4, 5 times if you so desired. Well, what will he say today? Everything is on track? Going according to plan, as well as could be expected? Or will he blame whatever's going wrong on Doug Ford? That's the fashionable thing to do. Whatever he says, I don't imagine it will be everyone over the age of 18 can get a shot. No. Instead, in this country, we have federal cabinet ministers point fingers at provincial premiers and cabinet ministers. Provincial premiers and cabinet ministers point their fingers back at their federal cousins, and we have this childish war of words about doses and freezers. All the while, we haven't even fully vaccinated everyone working in healthcare. Frontline healthcare workers, our heroes in the hospitals and in the long-term care homes. For shame. For shame. This is the state of affairs, just so everyone's clear, okay? In this country, Atlantic Canada is still in a bubble. Quebec still has a curfew. In Ontario, local health officials want a province-wide stay-at-home order. Manitoba just canceled 24 vaccine clinics. Why? Because they don't have any vaccine. A shipment of Moderna scheduled to arrive did not arrive. In Saskatchewan, there have never been so many people in the province's intensive care units with COVID. The Brazilian variant is running through Alberta, and there's a circuit breaker lockdown underway in British Columbia right now. That's where we are, in this country, under this leadership, at all levels of government. Meantime, in the United States, 2 weeks from now, 18-year-olds will be vaccinated. They'll be vaccinated before they've gone to the prom. And in Arlington, Texas, they hosted a sold-out Major League Baseball game yesterday. Wasn't that a strange sight? I'll be honest with you, I watch the American cable news networks from time to time, and lately when I do, I'm starting to get jealous. I turned 50 this year. I never even thought I'd be vaccinated until sometime in the fall anyway. I was banking on September, right? But now to see like Americans 18 years old, they can get vaccinated? Come on. It's hard not to feel a little bit jealous. Right? I'm happy for them. But I'm a little bit jealous too. Their lives are going to get back to normal before ours will. They're going to be able to see their friends and family again. Here we're calling for travel restrictions. The restriction-free travel across the United States this summer. Load up the family into the camper. Soon they won't have to wear masks, and their small businesses will reopen, and their economies will roar back to life. And I want so bad for all of that to happen here. And instead, what are we talking about today? Shutdown, lockdown, gray zone isn't working, and we need to close things up even tighter. That's our raging debate right now. Stop me if you've heard this one before. It's our top story here on the Rob Snow Show this morning, with plenty of coverage for you from the people making the news. In a few minutes' time, the medical officer of health for Ottawa, Dr. Vera Etches. She's part of a coalition, I guess you could say, of chief medical officers. Dr. Paul Remiliotis, Eastern Ontario Health Unit, Cornwall, Hawkesbury area. He's part of it too. United Counties. Along with the medical officers in Peel and Toronto. They have an open letter. They sent it to Dr. Williams and the Premier. They want to go big. Stay-at-home orders, travel restrictions. Imagine restricting travel from one part of the province to the other. Closing schools. That's not happening here, at least for now. It's happening in Peel. Peel School Board is a huge school board. 150,000 students, 15,000 staff. No in-class learning today or for the next 2 weeks. Parents, when did they find out? Yesterday afternoon. How's that fair to them? And it wasn't even an elected official who made that call. It was one person. It wasn't a mayor. It wasn't a regional chair. It wasn't the premier. It wasn't even anyone elected as a school board trustee. No, it was just an unelected health official that made that call. Anyway, province-wide stay-at-home order is what they want. It may be the first week of April, but when it comes to restrictions, I guess it should look more like Boxing Day of last year. And stay at home. Stay at home. They want the government to look at its list of what is an essential business. I keep coming back to this picture of IKEA over the weekend. You know why? Because it peeves me off. Like, IKEA, come on. Pressboard made in China, assemble yourself with an Allen key furniture. This is essential. Give me a break. We're supposed to be in a shutdown. Why are people lined up outside IKEA on a Saturday afternoon? And if you were one of them who did that, you're stupid. You're stupid. Stop doing that stupid stuff. And when all of this stuff is put to people in the Ford government, what you get back is, it's all up to Dr. Williams, and we'll do whatever he says. Oh, who voted for Dr. Williams? Oh, nobody. Right. Okay. But whatever. See, I'm a little on the cranky side today. You could make a good case that whatever we're doing now, it ain't working. Maybe it would be working better if everyone over the age of 18 had at least one dose of vaccine. But we have near record daily case counts. The number of people in hospital goes up every day. Number of people in ICU as high as it's ever been. And the health officials are saying, we need a stay-at-home order. It has to be uniform, province-wide. It has to be done now. pronto, tout de suite, vite. Okay? And I want to know what you think about that. I know we talked about it yesterday. I know we talked about it last week, last month, last year, and you know what? It's not going to be the last time we talk about it. This is why we do the Talkback Hour every morning between 10 and 11. It's your hour, your opinion, 750-1310. Email therobsnowshow, ottawa.citynews.ca. Take advantage of the platform. Make your opinion known. It's why we do the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's such a beautiful field because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manitic, the Manitic Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health. And it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer, some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them from different tests they had done with their doctor. And I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, we'll go out our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Let's jump right into it. Dr. Vera Etches, Ottawa's Medical Officer of Health, with me this morning on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
I heard you were a little gravelly voice this morning. You're feeling okay?
I am, and I've tested negative for COVID, so that's good.
Okay. Yeah, you got a little Stevie Nicks sound going on this morning, Dr. Etches. So, a stay-at-home order. Why would you be in favor of a province-wide stay-at-home order?
Well, what we can see is that the COVID has been really rising to levels we haven't seen in the community, and it's going very quickly. It's driven by the variants of concern, which do cause hospitalization more than the other types of COVID. And we are seeing that the hospitals are under pressure, and it can't continue to grow at this rate. So it's the same story we've heard before, and we had to turn the curve when it got to this place. But the measures that have been required to turn the curve, in January included a stay-at-home order. So now with the variants here and being more transmissible, we can see that a stay-at-home order is likely required again. And when we look around the world at other places where they've had the variants of concern circulating, they've also needed to use stricter measures. So,
okay. If I could just jump in there, I mean, we're in the gray zone, right? We're in the gray zone, which is like the worst zone to be in. What's the difference between a gray zone and a stay-at-home order?
Well, the stay-at-home order emphasizes to people that they really shouldn't be going out for non-essential purposes. And right now there are so many businesses open that are providing a lot of different services. We see people going out, and it increases the risk of gathering. People coming into close contact, workers amongst themselves coming into close contact. This virus has asymptomatic infections. People don't always realize when they're posing a risk to others, and we need to decrease those chances for transmission.
Okay. Schools reopened today. They did not in Peel region. Why did schools reopen today?
Schools are one of the last places we should close because they provide a lot of support for families to be able to work, to be able to have food to feed their families. We've also heard from parents after the last two times schools were closed, the level of distress and challenges that they faced for their children not feeling comfortable with going back and forth and the lack of social connection, and it's really one of the services that's really essential for children. So what we're looking at is in Ottawa, 98% of schools are free from an outbreak of COVID. When an outbreak occurs, it's usually only 2 people testing positive in a school, and 73% of schools right now have nobody who has tested positive for them, where they've been actively infectious in the schools right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, page A4 of the Ottawa Citizen today, there's a major headlines. Keeping schools open, downright dangerous, it says. Keeping schools open, downright dangerous.
Children are more likely to get COVID in the community than in the schools, and the same for teachers. The community transmission is what is driving COVID levels up, and it's what's introducing COVID into schools. So the schools are not the place where children are typically picking up COVID.
Classrooms are not a driver of transmission. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Of all the people that test positive, when we send the cohort home, usually we do not see transmission within that cohort. And we've studied that for variants of concern as well. We've asked everyone to be tested when they've gone home when there's a variant of concern at play, and we did not find that there was greater transmission in those situations.
Okay. Section 22, I believe it's called. All right. That's what the Peel medical officer of health, Dr. Lowe, used to order the schools in Peel region to be closed for the next 2 weeks. Under that legislation, what can you do unilaterally? You're making this appeal to Dr. Williams and provincial authorities, but under this Section 22 authority, what can you do? Obviously you can close schools. Can you decide what's an essential business, what's not an essential business? Can you impose a curfew? What authority do you have, Doctor?
The reason we're asking for provincial action is because we can see that we're all connected, and what happens in one area affects the neighbors. Other countries have taken countrywide measures to be able to turn the curve. There are things that we're looking for that are only under provincial jurisdiction. Right now it is provincial jurisdiction that's established which services are essential. It's a province that would be able to support people with sick leave. This is the best tool, is the provincial regulation. And if the Chief Medical Officer of Health indicates that he doesn't agree with what's required right now, we'll have to look at what's possible locally, but it would not be as effective.
Okay. I'm kind of demoralized by the whole turn of events, and I think a lot of people in the city are.
Yes.
We seem to be doing well, and the warm weather was here, and then all of a sudden we went from orange to red to gray, and now we have this appeal for even stricter measures. What are we doing wrong? If the government says I can go to IKEA, maybe I'll go to IKEA, or I can go to a park, or I can go hiking or biking. Are these things wrong? I shouldn't be doing them, Doctor?
It is tough to be very strict about 2 meters distance with everyone else, but that is what's needed. And so I do want people to go outdoors. Outdoors is much, much safer than indoors. And still, when you're gathering with people outside of your household, pay attention to the 2 meters. We're finding with the more transmissible viruses that we are seeing transmission outdoors when people are closer together. So, it's not that everyone's wrong about outdoors. You should go outdoors. It's just we need to be a little bit more attentive to that distance between ourselves. And, where we can't be sure that will be maintained, then to use masks. It's hard. It's normal for us to want to get together after all this time. We just need to keep ourselves on a good track for a couple more months, and we'll have the vaccine protecting all the older adults, everyone who's at greater risk for hospitalization. We're just not quite there yet.
Okay, should we be rethinking how we prioritize vaccinations, which has largely been done by age so far? At the very beginning, it was done based on risk, right? And who at-risk communities, these sorts of things, and age. But now people are wondering, well, maybe we should, for example, we should get into some of the distribution warehouses where people, are not maybe congregate living, but they're certainly congregate working. And we should do something like that and prioritize people who are keeping the economy running right now. What do you think, Doctor?
I think we need to continue the approach of using age and risk. And so I say we need to continue with age because people over 60 are still at highest risk for hospitalizations. And we need to go down to 50 because people over 50 are in hospital. And more so, as this grows. The other piece of addressing communities at higher risk for COVID, it is to get to lower income neighborhoods where people have greater occupational exposures potentially. And so that work, started. We first went out to neighborhoods with postal codes where COVID was the highest, and we're continuing that neighborhood-based approach to grow that to include workers in situations like you're suggesting.
Okay. Get well soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you feel better. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dr. Vera Etches, Medical Officer of Health for the City of Ottawa. Coming up, Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business on the housing market and a whole lot more. Rob Snow's show on City News.
On 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 6th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 5 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Chief Medical Officer of Health for Ottawa joined a number of counterparts asking the province for a stricter lockdown measure to control the rising number of COVID cases in Ontario. Should that apply to schools? Schools in one area, Peel, are closed, kids learning remotely this week, and that is not being expanded for now in the rest of the province. But the Chief Medical Officer of Health there says decreasing transmission for this week and next will break the chain of transmission. Next week, of course, is the postponed March break. But Dr. Vera Etches in Ottawa says schools are 98% free of COVID here, and when there is an outbreak, they are very small. Community transmission, she says, is the danger because that's where it's happening, not in schools. International Monetary Fund predicting the world economy is going to expand 6% this year. That's up even from its prediction just a couple of months ago in January, estimating 5.5% growth. If that is correct, it would be the fastest expansion for the global economy since the records began back in 1980. City News Time at 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News. 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Welcoming back the professor, the poor professor from the glebe. Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah.
Just before we start,
Okay.
I just want to focus very briefly, quickly,
Okay.
two announcements.
Yeah.
IMF this morning said that the world economy is going to grow by 6% this year, the largest increase in the history of keeping records of the world economy.
Right.
And I just want to contrast that with our government, and I've said this repeatedly, who insist that, the economy has gone over the cliff. It's we're reduced eating large numbers, reduced eating cat food and dog food, and yet all the data, StatsCan data, U.S. economy on fire data, IMF data is flatly contradicting what the finance minister and the prime minister are saying about the Canadian economy.
Now, this weekend, for example, on some of the political talk shows, they were saying, we can't let up on spending now. We have to continue to invest in the economy now. In other words, stimulate the economy, right? Yeah.
It's a 6% growth rate. That's real with inflation removed.
Yeah.
They have never seen such growth since the stats for the world economy were established. The U.S. economy this year is forecast to grow at 6%. Conference Board of Canada says Canadian economy is going to grow at 6%. And the reason I'm pointing this out is the Prime Minister has told us for 4 years nonstop, we are evidence-based. No, they are not.
Yeah, but isn't a lot of this, okay, we're going to grow at 6%, but economic activity, say, for the first half of last year, it was down almost 40%, right? Isn't a lot of this just making up for lost ground? Like, for example, all the officials in the United States and the Biden White House were patting themselves on the back that last month the U.S. economy added almost 1 million jobs.
Exactly.
But still, more people are unemployed at this point in time than they were during the worst of the financial crisis more than a decade ago. Almost 10 million Americans remain unemployed.
Well, you have to use percentages. You can't use absolutes because the economy grows. The population grows. But if you're comparing it to pre-COVID, the Canadian economy has recovered almost all the jobs. I think it's down to 2.5%. We're at 9%. We went down to 8.2%. So that means 90, in round numbers, 92% of us are working. and are making money.
Sure.
Well, the government is simultaneously saying large numbers of people have fallen over the cliff. The safety nets have collapsed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's such an incredible... I've never in my lifetime seen such a disconnect between what the decision-making officials in the government are saying at the national level and what all the data is saying. And I'm not cherry-picking one data source. You can go to the U.S. Census Bureau. You can go to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. You can go to StatScan. You can go to the Canadian banks, their chief economist sites where they have all these studies and forecasts and numbers. You can go to the Bank of Canada Monetary Policy Report. You can go to the IMF. You can go to any source you want.
Yeah.
And they're all saying essentially the absolute opposite of the words coming out of the mouth of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance in Canada. I mean, it's truly astonishing that they are just so completely, they're in denial. You know, they talk about climate denial. Well, these are financial recovery denialists.
Well, it's certainly a great time for the housing side of the economy. That's for sure. Anything tied to real estate. I do find it very interesting that we've had, you know, the three biggest banks now have all had their economics units writing reports about the smoking red-hot housing market. And look, it's not just Toronto and Vancouver anymore, right? Now it's, you know, it's Halifax and Moncton and St. Catharines and, you know, it's here, there, and everywhere, right? You know, it's a Stomp and Tom song, for crying out loud, this housing market. We had a researcher on from the C.D. Howe Institute yesterday saying it's probably not the best idea if you want to have a capital gains tax. This morning we'll have a expert on from the Bank of Montreal. Look, you have this chartered banking background. I just find it interesting because so many of the mortgages, I mean, the vast majority of the mortgages are held by the big banks. So it's interesting for them to say it's getting too hot. It's getting too hot. I mean, they have a vested interest in a thriving housing market. So what's going on here? What do you think is going on here?
Because people can say, oh, these dueling, you know, experts, and one economist says this, another economist says that. Okay, fine and dandy. I want to put out a thought experiment to everybody listening to this program right now.
Thought experiment.
Can you, what Einstein called a thought experiment.
All right.
Can you imagine any possibility or scenario where because you put a big new tax on something, you're going to create more of that thing that you're taxing? Because that's what they're saying. If we tax capital gains, we're going to cause the housing crisis to go away, or at least diminish it dramatically. And what I've been arguing nonstop for as long as I've been talking about real estate prices in this country, and you and I have been talking a long time about this.
Decade or more. Yeah.
And Scotiabank came out, their most senior chief economist, who is, by the way, the former Associate Deputy Minister at Finance Canada.
That's right. Yeah.
And he said, look, there's a fundamental mismatch between supply and demand. Yeah. And I've been saying that for years and years.
Build more houses. Right.
You know, and why is there a fundamental mismatch? Because of three reasons. Yes, we've juiced the demand side by putting the interest rates at the lowest level ever in human history. Mm-hmm. That is a contributing factor, no question about it. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, the provincial governments have either implemented rent controls or have previously had rent controls and have threatened to put them in again. And so they have driven investment out of the rental market because the investors say, you know what, even if there's no rent controls this tomorrow morning or this morning, you know, I know that the government, you can count on them.
There could be, right?
So why would I risk my capital, my investment in a market where the government is playing games with it?
Right.
So they've created a shortage in the rental market, which drives people who rent. We're saying, why should I pay $2,500 a month for an apartment? I'll go buy a house. And then the worst that's at the provincial level. Yeah. The interest rates are at the federal level. Yeah. And at the municipal level, who are the worst culprits of all, I'm referring to the GTA, the Vancouver, the broader Vancouver area, and now Ottawa and others, where they're putting very profound limits on growth with their, what I consider contemptuous and abhorrent phrase, urban sprawl. That's their pejorative term. It's code talk, okay? Yeah. That's their code talk for young people and immigrants who want to go out to the burbs and buy their house, their dream home in the sun, in the suburbs, because the land is affordable. So they have deliberately...
Drive till you qualify. They
have deliberately, socially engineered shortages across this country. And why we aren't rising up as one against these counselors and saying, you know what, you've caused enormous suffering to ordinary people. You've driven the house prices up and made them unaffordable for our young people. I mean, I just don't understand why the young people aren't out there with pitchforks. And where's the revolution? You know, and I don't mean that literally. I'm not advocating a revolution. I'm just saying, why are we not condemning in the strongest terms possible the people who are most responsible for this crisis, which are the municipal councillors across? I'm not just picking on Ottawa. I'm picking on all of those suburbs, all of those municipalities across Canada that said, no, we're not going to grow. We bring in 1 million people every 3 years, which I strongly support. 1 million immigrants every 3 years. Every 3 years, we drop an Ottawa into Canada, and they fatuously say, we don't need to grow in the suburbs at all. How do you think we grew this country or the States? Once upon a time, there wasn't 330 million people in the States. If you go back to 1776, there were maybe 5 million people. So where did they grow? They kept building new suburbs. That's how every city is growing. The same with Canada. When I went to Carleton Place in 1959, Carleton Place was, I think, 3,000 people. Now it's 10,000 people. They built more houses at the edge of Carleton Place. The same with Ottawa. When I came back to Ottawa, I mean, the edge of Ottawa used to be Alta Vista. If you go back to the late 50s, that was the outer edge of Ottawa, was Alta Vista. And Elmville Acres didn't exist. It started to be built in 1959, 1960.
Yeah, I can remember, 30 years ago when I moved here, 30 years ago, they were just starting to build the South Keys Shopping Center. And I mean, everything, there was nothing there. I mean,
my parents bought a house in 1957 on Weston Drive, which is in Elmville Acres, 1 block from the Elmville Shopping Center, which did not exist. I used to go there and catch frogs when I was in 1959. And then they started to bulldoze. It was a sort of a little swampy tree area there with a swamp, and there were frogs. And I used to catch frogs there. And that was the edge. We were on the outer edge of Ottawa on Weston Drive. Canada, what was that? Barhaven, I don't think existed. And so my point is, we went from 300,000 roughly in 1960 to over 1 million.
All right, let's rein this in a little bit. We have to rein this in a little bit. Let's rein this in a little bit.
We're supposed to grow to 1.5 million. They even agree with the demographers, and they say we don't have to build any new suburbs. That's what's so shameful about the councillors. They're selling us snake oil.
All right. Okay. That's becoming like a weekly rant for you on this.
Well, it's just because and by the way, I have a house. I'm okay.
You're sad. You have a house in the glebe, for crying out loud.
So anyone who says, oh, you're arguing this out of self-interest, no, I'm not.
Like you, it's like waking up every day and you've won the 649, okay? That's the way it is.
Yeah, but what about our young people? Why do our councillors not give a damn about them? And why do they not care about our immigrants who want to be able to afford a house out in the burbs where it's cheaper? Why this hostility to our young people and our immigrants?
Okay. I'm not sure if it's hostility. It might be stupidity.
Well, I don't like to call them names. Right. I think I think they're smart enough to understand what they're doing, by the way. I do. Yeah, I don't. They understand what they're doing, but
let's get to this, because it's wide open now, and some of the banks are saying nothing should be off the table. Nothing. You should look at everything. Okay.
I have a different answer.
And one of them is this idea. Look. Commercial real estate, you sell it, there's a gain. Okay, you pay the capital gain on it. Stocks, investments, except those that are held in your RSP. But if you're going to speculate in the markets, you have to pay capital gains tax.
Rob,
why should somebody's house be any different? Okay,
Rob,
that's the case they're going to make.
I've got 2 answers to that. Number one, we should be saying anything that can contribute to more housing supply should be on the table. Anything.
Right.
And any policy proposal that does not contribute to the building of new homes should not be discussed. It's driven by ideology. Because if it isn't building new homes, then how is that going to address the housing crisis? To the second point, I've been doing some research because I'm writing an op-ed on this. Because I always do research, and I mean serious research. And so I looked up and found some studies in Europe, OECD studies, of course, because they're the gold standard. And one made a study, looked at all of the studies on capital gains on principal residence. And most of the countries in Europe, the great progressive countries of Europe, exempt principal residence. So this myth that we're the only, I've heard this urban legend perpetrated that we're the only country in the world of the major countries, of the Western countries, that don't tax principal residence. That's simply not true. I've got the study from OECD, recent study, by the way, 2019. And it went and surveyed every country and actually looked at the legislation. So if we want to go practice or precedent, most countries don't do it. If you want to do a functional argument, well, is this going to actually help the cause of producing more housing? No. Now, they're saying it's going to affect the drive down the speculation of the price. I don't understand how that's going to affect it if it doesn't affect the fundamental supply-demand imbalance. When people have to pay capital gains on stocks, that doesn't stop them from speculating on the stock market. And that to me, is the killer argument. Anyone who says, look, there's people speculating on their house, driving up the price of the house because they know it's going to go up again in the future, so therefore they'll stop buying houses and driving up prices. Yeah? Have you heard of the stock market? Stock market has periodic, regular, since the beginning of the stock market. It has periodic eras, periods where it takes off. And stocks across the board go up, and people you get into a speculative frenzy. And there's capital gains on stocks in Canada, by the way, for everybody. So the next time someone sells you the snake oil that a capital gains tax is going to stop people from driving up prices, then why hasn't it done so for 100 years on the stock exchange, on the Toronto or the New York or the NASDAQ?
Look, when we come back, I want to talk about just the state of the pandemic right now. The vaccine rollout. Biden is going to announce today, April 19th, if you're over 18 in the United States, you can get a vaccine. Anywhere in the United States. April 19th, Professor, in 2 weeks, right?
And I'm not vaccinated, and I want one badly.
Okay. Stay-at-home orders, non-essential businesses, travel restrictions, the whole thing when we come back with Professor Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Part of the reason I got back into this is because I am creative, and I also wanted to kind of have a fun flair, 50s vibe. All of the boxes are kind of fun names, the colors are fun, the logo is fun, and it's not just the package that I want to bring joy to people's lives, it's also the feeling that they get when they receive it, to know that there's someone that thinks of them and they're missing them, and showing that they care when they can't be there. The smallest of the subscription boxes is the red box, the classical box. So you would get 5 to 7 items from the variety of categories. Those do change quarterly. However, with items that are more popular, we'll bring them back as people ask for them, or you could get them as an add-on option. And then those items will be included in the Jazzy box, the same items from the first, although they'll be in a larger size, more quantity, as well as a couple extra items. And then in the largest box, the Doo-Wop Deluxe, which is our most popular, that is a comprehensive offering of all of the other 2 boxes, plus additional. So for example, if you were to get a certain item in the smallest of the boxes, that item would still be offered in the large, but in a bigger size. So you're getting everything bigger, plus an extra few items. The first thing is I look for Canadian suppliers and manufacturers. That is something I'm very proud of. I make sure that the products are safe, that they fit into the packages that we offer, obviously. They have to be the proper size and weight. I have approximately 300 items that we have so far that we can order that basically help make people's lives easier. There's snacks, there's self-care items, there's entertainment, a little bit of everything. And basically I try it and test it, and if it's duly approved, then I include it in our packages. So some of the categories that we have is we offer treats, which is of course everyone likes treats, no matter how old you are. So we have things like nuts, chocolates, different types of snacks, maybe a handmade piece of jewelry. We also include pieces of jewelry as well, occasionally. We also have our Pamper Items. So your Pamper Items would include things like your bath soaks, your specialty lotions, things like that. 2 other categories we offer are leisure. Leisure would include things such as puzzles, adult coloring books, paint by numbers, crosswords, word find, Sudoku, if that's how you say it. And we also have items for self-care and health. So masks, sanitizers, sanitizing wipes. They're all natural, non-drying, made with natural ingredients. So they're very good for everyone, especially in this time that we're dealing with.
Opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
All right. Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University. If you don't mind divulging, how old are you, Professor?
I'm 68.
58 or 68?
68, and I am 2 kilometers from the Parliament Hill, which is deemed to be or perceived to be the center of democracy in one of the wealthiest countries on the planet Earth. And I have tried, I haven't offered bribes, of course, we're a very all good people, all of us, but I have certainly voiced my concern publicly, privately, and frustration over the fact I cannot get a vaccine.
Right.
My sister, who is 10 years younger than me, and the epitome of health.
And lives where?
And lives in Arizona.
Oh, yeah, okay.
A permanent she's an American, married an American. Right. And she has had not only 1 vaccine, thank you very much, she's had 2 vaccines 3 months apart, and her 3 children, who are in their 20s, in perfect health, thank you very much, have been vaccinated.
Oh, okay.
And I am sitting...
So the whole family, your whole sister's family, they've all been vaccinated.
And all her friends. And all her friends, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, it's just... I'm sitting there, I'm gobsmacked by this. Like, I'm high risk because I'm over 65. I've got rheumatoid arthritis, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm a male. And those
you've got new hips, new knees. You're basically bionic from the waist down these days, right?
So that was funny. But my point is, I am seriously high risk. I'm classified as high risk. And I am high risk because of the rheumatoid drugs I take. It's not a secret. People with rheumatoid arthritis typically take immunosuppressive drugs. Yeah. And notwithstanding all of that, I can't get immunized. They're worrying all these kabuki theater, people not getting immunized, who are against vaccines. Well, how about focusing on the people that want to get immunized, like me?
Yeah.
Radical thought?
Sure. So what you're 67, so what's the...
68.
Well, 68, whatever. Okay, I'm trying to give you a break here.
Okay.
What's the holdup? Shouldn't you be able to get one by now, or what? What are they telling you?
If you go to the city of Ottawa, of course, they said they were doing over 80, which I understand.
Yeah.
And they were doing over 75, and then they're down to 70, and then it just seems to have plateaued there.
Yeah. But aren't some of the pharmacies doing over 60s now?
I've registered with 2 different pharmacies, and I got acknowledged my registration, and that was it. We'll get in touch with you when we got something to talk to you about.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
Well, no, I understand it. If people say, don't you understand there's a lack of supply? Yes, I understand there's a lack of supply, but why is there a lack of supply when the United States is going to have 300 million people vaccinated by June? Like, where did we drop the ball?
Well, where do you think we dropped the ball? What do you think we did wrong here? I want to do a case study on the Canadian vaccine rollout.
We do know, and some people say I'm being partisan. I'm not. We know that the federal government took it upon itself, in agreement with the provinces, that it would do the procurement and then distribute it to the provinces, who in turn could distribute it to whomever, cities and pharmacies and so forth.
Yeah.
But the originator that was responsible for procuring the supply was the government of Canada. And it dropped the ball. And there's been a lot of analyses of this in the Globe and Mail and the National Post and other media, that they left it late. Israel, I was fascinated. How come Israel? Okay, it's a small country. It's only 10 million people. That's not the point. How did they get to almost 100% so fast? Well, apparently they went, the moment the crisis unfolded, they started contacting pharmaceutical companies. They were very strategic. They were alert. They were on the ball. They weren't focused on doing selfies and going up on Parliament Hill and kneeling with protesters. They were focused on the problem at hand. And I think that we dropped the ball, and we left it late, and we didn't get a first mover advantage, to use the language of business and strategy and economics. Israel got a first mover advantage, as did the UK and the US. And that's the primary reason.
Right.
If you want a secondary...
Well, in particular, when it comes to the UK and the United States, it certainly had a much more robust domestic pharmaceutical industry than we had
here. That's what I was hoping you were going to bring up, and I want to just talk about that very, very briefly.
All right.
Because in my class, I've been using pharmaceutical industry for literally 30 years. Okay, there's a lot of case studies in the Harvard Business Review as well as the Ivy University of Western Ontario Business School. And it's a very heavily studied industry. And the students like it. It's popular like airlines because, they recognize the names and they understand what it's doing and, that sort of thing, creating drugs to deal with heart attacks, cancer, stroke, whatever.
Right.
And so it's popular, and there's an extraordinary amount of information about both industries because they're both heavily regulated. And a regulated industry has to disclose a lot more information, so therefore from a student and a professor point of view, they're a lot more fun because you can get a lot more data to analyze. Okay. The industry is fascinating because, first off, it's enormously capital intensive, multi-billions and billions. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, puts on their website. It takes $1.5 billion to bring one new drug successfully to market, meaning to FDA approval.
Yeah.
Another figure they have at their website is about 2 to 5 drugs per 100 make it to FDA approval. In other words, all the other drugs or drug proposals or potential
drug candidates,
candidates fail as they work through the pipeline process. I'm not faulting that. That's good. There's lots of due diligence. You don't want dangerous drugs to be approved.
Sure.
What that means, though, is that those 2 or 3 successful drugs not only have to carry the freight, meaning the cost, the R&D cost of that one drug that is successful, it has to carry the R&D of all the failed drugs in the pipeline, which means that it's incredibly expensive and it's a very long time frame. It takes 8-9 years to bring a drug to market to get it to FDA approval. And so Germany and Switzerland and the U.S., to name 3 jurisdictions, have developed a macro policy framework that understands that and has fostered a framework that is very attractive to the pharmaceutical industry. And so guess what? They've invested because it's a very high-risk industry. It's high. People say, what are you talking about? It's not high risk. Of course it is. If 95 or 96 of your 100 candidates are failing, and you don't know which ones a priori are going to succeed, okay, and it takes 8-9 years to find out. That's a recipe for very high risk with lots of money. So they're not going to go into a country where they think that the risk is too great given those risk factors. We made a huge mistake under Brian Mulroney, so this is a bipartisan criticism I'm making. We introduced price controls. Even though we don't regulate the price of General Motors cars, we don't regulate the price of restaurants, we don't regulate the price of just about anything with the exception of supply management of milk and eggs, and so most things we believe in a competitive market. But we regulated the price of pharmaceuticals. People say, well, that's a good thing. We regulated the price below what they would have charged. So people say that's a good thing. So there you are, the investor, the CEO or an investor in a huge pharmaceutical company, and you can go to Germany where they don't regulate your prices, or Switzerland, or the United States, or you can go to Canada where the leadership of the leader of the Liberal and NDP regularly demonize and attack pharmaceutical companies as these greedy, selfish, blah, 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 and they regulate your prices. Or you can say, you know what, I think I'll take a pass on that, and I will go to Germany or Switzerland or the United States. Now, those people listening who say, no, that's too harsh. Okay, let's look at the record of what happened to pharmaceutical companies after Mulroney introduced that legislation over the following 20, 25 years. Our research pharmaceutical industry has basically vanished. They pulled out. We have generics, but that doesn't count because they're not doing research on new drugs.
Right. They're waiting for patents to expire.
They're waiting for the patents to expire so then they can go on, and that's fine. That's a legit industry once the patent expires.
Yeah.
But if we want to understand why we don't have a thriving, vibrant pharmaceutical industry, well, I want to quote Pogo. We have met the enemy, and it is truly us. And I'm looking at you, Jagmeet Singh, and I'm looking at you, Mr. Trudeau.
Okay.
Stop demonizing.
And Brian Mulroney, he's still around.
And Mulroney should never have introduced price controls. We don't price control anything else. We don't price control computers or flowers at Home Depot or Canadian Tire or tools and people say.
Well, you've argued, actually we do with milk, eggs. And
right. And for those who say, don't you understand, this is an essential. Well, I would argue that food is even more essential because I've got to eat 3 times a day until the day I die.
Okay.
And we do not regulate groceries at Loblaws.
That's your time. We're going to pick it up next week when hopefully by then you will have had at least one dose of vaccine and you'll be in a better mood.
I'm hoping.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you, Professor. Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University. So you've heard from him. You've heard from me. You've heard from Dr. Etches. Now it's your turn. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. Etches joining medical officers of health from Cornwall, Hawkesbury, Peel, Toronto. They want a stay-at-home order. Do you? Because of the situation with COVID-19? Cases up, hospitalizations up, number of people in ICU, all up, all trending the wrong way. Do you want a stay-at-home order issued by Premier Ford? And what things look like in Ontario for Boxing Day, we should bring that in again. 750-1310. We're going to take as many calls as we can in hour number 2 of our show, the Talkback Hour, here on City News.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 6th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 5 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The top doctor in the city sent a joint letter with counterparts in Toronto and Peel to the province, trying to implement tougher restrictions on the province, including a stay-at-home order. Cases of COVID continue to surge. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Medical Officer of Health Dr. Vera Etches feels due to the rise of the variants of concern, tighter measures are required, which happened in other countries where the strain circulates. Dr. Etches tells the Rob Snow Show she doesn't want to see further closures in schools, however.
Schools are one of the last places we should close because they provide a lot of support for families to be able to work, to be able to have food to feed their families.
She adds currently 98% of schools in Ottawa are outbreak-free, and at 73% of schools, nobody is tested positive and is actively infectious. The doctor explains if Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health doesn't agree with the letter and implement additional restrictions, the City of Ottawa will look into what options are available locally, but feels that will not be as effective as the provincial framework. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News time, 10:03. We're expecting a good deal of sunshine through today and tomorrow, in fact, and temperatures in the mid-teens. Right now in both Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 5 degrees. As the United States moves towards vaccinating everyone eligible for a vaccine by April 19th, health experts are concerned about a possible super spreader event in the United States. That involved the packed stands for the Texas Rangers home opener against the Blue Jays.
Nearly 40,000 fans, many without masks, packed the stadium, which had its retractable roof open. The latest CDC guidance says, vaccinated or not, people should still wear masks. Infectious disease experts are mixed in their view of the Rangers allowing full capacity at this stage of the pandemic, with some calling it misguided, while others say lower rates of infection and increasing rates of vaccination give the decision more credibility. By the way, Texas lost to Toronto 6-2. I'm Julie Walker.
As we get further into the calendar year, the IMF is changing its economic rebound forecast from COVID-19. The International Monetary Fund predicting the world economy is going to expand 6% this year. In January, it predicted the growth would be 5.5%. If this is correct, it will be the fastest expansion for the global economy in IMF records dating back to 1980. 190-country leading agency upgraded its forecast after looking at the rollout of vaccines and the vast sums of government aid that it says will fuel a powerful rebound from the pandemic recession. One very important cog in the worldwide economy is the Suez Canal, and the chief of that operation says authorities are now negotiating a financial settlement with the owners of the ship that blocked the crucial waterway for nearly a week. The chief tells the Associated Press he hopes talks with the Japanese owner will conclude without a lawsuit. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Should Ontario have another stay-at-home order? Yes or no? Let's get it going. I'm going to keep score. Keep track. Yes or no? Rapid poll style. Okay, yes or no? I'm keeping track right here. Here, letter Y, here's letter N. Keep track, okay? Roman numerals, okay? Because things are getting serious in a hurry, folks. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I need to know, do you agree with Dr. Etches and her many colleagues in public health and on the front lines of our healthcare system? Because a lot of them, not all of them, okay, but a lot of them, they're calling for stricter measures, like a stay-at-home order, travel restrictions, school closures, a review of what is really an essential business. But let's stick with stay-at-home order just for now. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Yes? No? That's where we start for this Talk Back Hour. Lines available. Email always open. The Rob Snow Show, ottawa.citynews.ca. Dr. Etches in Ottawa, Dr. Davila in Toronto, Dr. Lawrence Lowe in Peel. They're all chief medical officers of health in their own jurisdictions. They sent a letter to Dr. David Williams. He's the Ontario medical officer of health. And the local officials don't think the current measures go far enough, given the state of the virus, particularly the variants. And they are calling for many things, including a stay-at-home order. So think back to Boxing Day. Think back to Christmas time and Christmas trees and Christmas dinner by yourself when we had the stay-at-home order, okay? But in addition to the stay-at-home order, I mean, they want travel restrictions between different regions of the province. I wonder if they do that, will we have the Quebec police on the bridges again between Ottawa and Gatineau? Paid sick days, they're on that bandwagon. I can give you the whole history on that file. I'll do that someday. I don't know if we'll get to it today. Move school to online or hybrid learning. Dr. Etches isn't there just yet. The teachers' unions have been pushing that. I would say fear-mongering on that. The Ford government has been pushing back on that. The Big Peel Public School Board was supposed to go back today. It's not going back today. No in-class learning for 2 weeks, right? Nice to find that out. Imagine you're a single mom, you got 2 kids in school, and you live in Brampton, and you're told the day before your children are supposed to go back to school. Oh, by the way, they're not going back to school. Oh, thanks. Thanks for the notice, so I can make some plans. Big school board, the public school board there. 150,000 students, 15,000 staff. And these medical officers felt they want the government to go line by line through its law. It's a long list when you look at what is deemed to be essential. Okay? And they want some reconsideration of what's really essential. Why is IKEA open? I don't know. I shouldn't be picking on IKEA, I guess, but they're saying urgent. It's urgent. Urgent. It comes through loud and clear when you go through the contents of the letter. Each day without action is time wasted. You must act now. You must act now. The third wave is here, they say. The variants are driving it. They're more contagious. Young people are getting sicker. They're getting so sick, they need to be admitted to the hospital. Some of them are in ICU on ventilators. Stretching the healthcare system to the limit. And these are the things that should be done. They should be in place for at least 4 weeks. And it's not just those 3 medical officers of health in their local jurisdictions calling for these measures. Ontario Medical Association. It's basically the union for the doctors, 43,000 doctors. Same thing. Stay-at-home order, paid sick days, closing businesses that aren't absolutely essential. Things are getting serious, folks. And I mean, these are the people. Dr. Etches, she's living it every day. It's consuming her whole life, I suspect. When you look at the data, right? Can you really say things are getting better? Or are things getting worse? Is it really a time to maintain the status quo, or is it a time to get serious and close things down? Well, they've come to the conclusion, at least in the big city, Toronto, Mississauga, Ottawa, Brampton, things are getting worse. Things are getting a lot worse, a lot faster, and we need the government to do something to get a handle on the situation. And we'll have a new case number in a few minutes here. Ready to go? Phones? Yeah? Let's rock and roll. Troy, Orleans, should we have a stay-at-home order in Ontario?
Hey, Rob, good to talk to you. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say yes. But the thing is, the wife and I have both been, we're both frontline workers and have been on a stay-home order for a whole year because we can't go out as frontline workers. We have to be safe. We have to stay home. We have to limit everything we do. Yet the city of Ottawa, here's an example of what the problem here. Not only do we need a stay-home order, but it needs to be enforced. Prime example in my life, there's an illegal car wash. I'm not going to get into the details, that opened up in my driveway here at my home. And these guys, as of yesterday, are running this thing full tilt, even though the city has shut them down and said you can't operate here.
But what do you mean there's an illegal car wash running in your driveway?
I'm telling you, there's a huge garage on my property, and the landlord rented it out to a couple of young guys, and they started...
Oh, I see. You rent this property. You rent a property.
Yeah,
oh,
and it's in a residential neighborhood, right? And so the city came and said, you can't open it here, it's own residence. But they took their sign down, and they're still... So yesterday, there was at least 17 cars that came in here, got nobody wearing masks, these guys standing around, all talking, hugging, shaking hands, and not a single person wearing a mask. Now meanwhile, I'm finishing a quarantine today because I was exposed to COVID again 2 weeks ago, right? And I have to stay home. I can't go outside. But these guys and people like them are ignoring everything. They tell us it's none of our business. They're going to do what they want. They don't care what the city says. And the city has dropped it. They said they took their sign down. We're leaving it at that. Yet they're running full tilt in the driveway.
Wow. Okay.
All day long. And shut it down. Shut everybody down, because the people who don't care are the people who don't work in healthcare, Rob, for the most part, right? The people who aren't forced to be locked down because of what we do for a living. It's not right.
All right, Troy. Thank you.
Bye.
Yep. Okay. So there's one. Yep. Shut it down, he says. Alta Vista, George. Should we have a stay-at-home order, George?
Yeah, but it sucks.
Yes, but it sucks. Yeah, I agree.
I mean,
it sucks. Yeah.
I just think that it's was botched. We're paying the price. We really have no other choice. But here we are. And so the right thing to do is to lock down. But I'm angry about it, and a lot of people are angry about it because I was watching the J game the other day, and holy cow, right?
Yesterday in Texas? In Texas yesterday, you mean?
That's right.
Yeah,
wow.
Crazy. What a crazy sight, eh? Yeah, I watched a little bit of that game too, yeah.
Either that's going to be a super spreader event, or maybe they've crossed the threshold there that they've managed to get some sort of herd immunity over there because of the vaccinations. But any news you get from the States, friends, relatives, snowbirds, it's completely opening up, and I can't believe we're an OECD country, a GA country, and we're this far behind. It's really embarrassing.
Okay, thank you, George, in Alta Vista. Renfrew, Regan, should we have a stay-at-home order in Ontario for 4 weeks?
We absolutely need a stay-at-home order. We need a curfew. We need travel restrictions, and more than anything, it needs to be enforced. Yeah. So
okay.
That's my take.
Okay, yeah, this is something I'm hearing a lot over the last few days. People are back to this idea, and I want enforcement. This idea of either ignoring things or letting people go, or not pulling over people who are out when maybe they're not supposed to be out. That these days are over. So this is, if I did this 2 weeks ago, if I said, stay-at-home order lockdown, it'd be no. And here I am, the first three callers this morning, and it's, it sucks, but we got to do it. Eric in Barrhaven, should we have a stay-at-home order?
Good morning, Rob. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll add my name to that list, to the fourth.
Right. Okay.
A similar anecdote to one of your previous callers. I was out this past weekend. Oh, by the way, I'm first vaccine yesterday.
Oh, good for you. Good to hear. Yeah.
So I need 2 weeks. I need 2 weeks to get some sort of immunity.
Yeah.
Anyway, 5 couples with their kids on the veranda of the house next door, upwind from me. Even with a mask, I didn't feel comfortable. So I just came in the house, went into the back deck. So a total shutdown, number one, makes that stuff disappear. And it makes it disappear because it becomes so obvious. It just can't happen.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like the curfew in Quebec, right? If you're on the street after 8 o'clock, you shouldn't be there.
You're a sitting duck, right?
You
don't
have an excuse, right?
No.
Yeah. You're in a shooting gallery.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to shut her down. I also want to tell you, and I'll just mention this in passing, that I'm taking part in a legal challenge to the second dose thing.
The 4-month interval?
4-month interval.
Okay, all right.
There's a lawyer in Toronto, a guy by the name of Ian Cooper, who's actually looking at folks that had their first dose, were promised that their second dose in 3 weeks, and then were moved out to 4 months. So he's representing them, but he's also looking at the broader package of those that are waiting 4 months with no good science to support it, and essentially setting up a 2-tier system in Ontario.
Ian Cooper. Okay.
Ian Cooper. Yeah.
All right.
I've got his number if David wants.
All right. Yeah. Hang on the line. David will take that down for us. Okay. Thank you. We'll be right back. Wow. If I had done this survey 2 weeks ago, the results would have been flip-flopped here. I'm asking, should we have a stay-at-home order in Ontario? And the first 4 callers have all said yes. Something's changed. 1017 City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, it's got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying. And then I shut my business down for, I think, a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries, started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting. And anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not. But more so now, because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff. And then again, their situations and their circumstances change.
Back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Dr. Etches says we need a stay-at-home order. So does, we have a clip of Dr. Davila, the Chief Medical Officer of Toronto. Yeah? Let's roll that.
So there's no question. The case counts are, horrific. They're not what we want to see. They are going absolutely in the wrong direction. I would say this. We have been in the pandemic now and in pandemic response for many months now, and we've had the opportunity to observe what measures actually work in terms of reducing infection. There's no question that measures that promote distance, whether taken at a policy level or taken by us as individuals, will help reduce transmission. And importantly, not only will they help reduce transmission, they will also allow for vaccines to have their greatest capacity, their greatest effect in terms of protecting all of us.
Not a lockdown, a stay-at-home order, and many more things. The Ontario number today just released is above 3,000. Again, it's 3,065, and I believe the Ottawa number that was released just moments ago is a record. I think the old record was 240. It's not that number?
Nope. My apologies for that. That is not the correct number for today.
Okay.
That was a mistranscriptions.
Mistype.
Today's number in Ottawa is 165 in Ottawa, according to the province.
165.
Our apologies for the error.
165. Okay, 165. Not a record, but still alarmingly high. And we should get one of the numbers we're going to start tracking here is how many vaccines have been administered, how many vaccine doses administered, because this is where all the finger pointing is going on between the feds and the provinces. Ford keeps saying, for example, we can do 150,000 vaccines a day if we get the supply. The number yesterday was like 50,000. And the new number should be out in a few minutes.
We've just gotten it.
What is it?
76,199.
Okay, 76,000, which is one half of 150,000. So, okay, stay-at-home order. Faith in Ottawa. Should we have a stay-at-home order? Faith.
Yes, certainly. We should have stay-at-home. if we don't, the political leaders will have a lot of deaths on their hands.
Okay. Thank you, Faith. Thank you. Thank you for calling. Okay. Let's take another one. Nick in Nepean. Should we have a stay-at-home order? What do you
Rob, let's put it this way. 8 months ago, I love Doug. He should have did it 8 months ago. He gave too many chances to the younger generation, and now the wise guys, the older generation like me, are coming out and are speaking out on your show and saying, "Okay, enough is enough, Doug. You're 7 months late, but stay at home." That's it. That's it, Doug. Rob, I mean, it's like when we were kids, right? Mom and Dad, don't do this, Nikki. Don't do it again. We'll give him another chance.
Right.
Well, we're running out of chances, Rob. I'm running out of chance. My business has fallen. My health has fallen. Like, my family's suffering. Like, my mom and dad, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't understand. I don't want to call your show.
Yep. Okay, Nick. Okay. Calm down, Nick. All right. Okay. All right. Gonna let you go. All right. I know a lot of people are at are at a breaking point here. All right. I get it. Okay. Leo.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Leo. Should we have a stay-at-home order?
Yes, it has to be done because the number one priority, now that we know it's affecting younger people, especially with the variants and all that, we have the number one priority now is to protect the citizens of the province of Ontario. And, if the experts are saying that we have to do this, it has to be done because, we have to listen to the experts, and our premier has to do that as well. He has no choice because if he doesn't, this can get out of control, and if it costs a lot of people's lives if he doesn't. And it's important that we have this. I wouldn't even be surprised that even a curfew would be implemented in this as well, because if we look at the past, Quebec issued a curfew, and it did help a lot. It drove numbers down a lot.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, the Quebec numbers are still a lot better than the Ontario numbers, and really, what's the big difference, right? You're not allowed out of the house after 8 o'clock.
Exactly.
And they enforce it. They don't fool around. If you're out at 7:30 with no good reason,
the police will stop you, and
they'll stop you, and they'll give you a ticket. They will give you a ticket. Right.
Exactly. So people are taking it serious, and maybe we need to do that. I know, I feel for the people.
Sure.
It's bad, but I think it's the best thing to do now. And while we do this and we bring the numbers down, we keep vaccinating people, and as we get enough people vaccinated, when we start opening up again, we won't have this problem again. This will be the end of it,
Yeah. All right. So maybe if we do it the right way, maybe it's the last one that we have to go through.
Exactly. And I think this is the best way to do it the right way, because they got enough experience from the first wave and the second wave. They should know now what to do and implement the right measures so we don't end up in another wave, because end up in another wave before we get enough vaccines into people's arms. Okay. But the thing is, get the numbers down, get vaccines into people's arms, and that's what will defeat this.
Gotcha.
And,
okay. Thank you, Leo. Thank you. Because we've reached halftime. The news is coming up again. 165 cases today for Ottawa, more than 3,000 across the province of Ontario. So there'll be a new number out this afternoon, like a more firm official number from Ottawa Public Health. But we had north of 200 cases yesterday in Ottawa, just under 200 the day before, about 240 the day before that. More hospitalizations, more people in ICU, a vaccination program that doesn't seem to be keeping up. The virus is spreading faster than staff can be added to the healthcare system, spreading faster than we can get shots into arms. So you heard Dr. Etches on the show this morning. It's our best tool right now. Yeah, it's not fun, but it's back to basics, and that means a stay-at-home order. Your opinion after the news on City News.
1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 6th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in both Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 7 degrees. And here's what's making news this hour. Provincial numbers of COVID infections today, 3,065. 165 of those cases are in Ottawa, 22 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 19 more cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 8 cases in Renfrew. There are also 8 more COVID-related deaths that have been recorded in Ontario in the past day. These new case numbers come from about 37,500 tests that were completed. Now, almost 1,000 of these new cases are in Toronto, 561 in Peel, 320 in York Region. Ottawa's Chief Medical Officer of Health says schools are not the problem with COVID transmission. 98% of schools, according to Dr. Vera Etches, do not have outbreaks, and of the other 2%, they're very small, 1 or 2 cases. Dr. Etches tells City News the problem is community transmission, and we have to follow the rules. They'll go a long way to controlling the virus. Pressure from the Liberal Party leader in Ontario to get school employees vaccinated. Stephen Del Duca says the province should take advantage of the postponed March break, which will be held next week, and use that time to vaccinate those frontline workers. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
So what these public health officials are saying, along with the group that represents the family physicians, the doctors in Ontario, they're saying we have to limit the chances, the opportunity for people to spread this virus. And they're arguing that the only serious way to do that is to limit where people can go and what they can do when they get there. What do you think? What do you think with a stay-at-home order that is enforced, right? 750-1310, 750-13. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not really surprised. I mean, here in Ottawa, we went from orange to red and into gray in no time flat. Toronto and Peel, I don't think Toronto and Peel ever came out of the gray zone after the Boxing Day lockdown, and now they want to lock things down even more. The government comes up with this thing, whatever it is. They don't even call it a lockdown, they call it a shutdown. And I mean, this IKEA thing over the weekend is kind of a tipping point for me because it's so stupid and laughable. We're supposed to be under whatever you want to call it, gray zone, lockdown, shutdown. Politicians pleading with people to, stay to themselves over Easter. Don't invite anyone over Easter. Don't go anywhere. Shut down small businesses again. Don't get on your patio. But hey, if you need a $59 coffee table that you put together yourself, knock yourself silly. It's just so stupid what this government does sometimes. And what has it accomplished? More cases, more hospitalizations, more people in ICU, younger people getting seriously ill because of the variants. And, I mean, this is where we are right now. Stay-at-home order. Stay-at-home order. That's the request. That is the request. Diane in Orleans, should we have a stay-at-home order?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, why? Why do you say that?
Well, I think we are fighting a war that we're not winning at the moment. Okay. And unfortunately, this war, you can't see your enemy. And I think people don't actually believe it's there and don't think it's real because they can't see anything.
Okay.
I think it absolutely has to be closed down for once and for all, and let's get rid of it. I know it's inconvenient, and I'm a lucky one. I'm a pensioner. And I've had my first vaccine. I realise how lucky I am. And there's so many people out there that desperately need them more than I did because I've stayed at home. And it's easier for me to stay at home. But it is a war. And until we realise that's exactly what it is, I don't think we're going to get anywhere.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Great way to look at it there. Okay. Madeline, what do you think? Stay-at-home order. Should we have a stay-at-home order, Madeline?
Yes.
Yes,
Stay
okay.
home. Take good care of yourself. It's called respect obedience. They've got to stay home. I'm a senior. I'm a pensioner. I'm 70, and I'll be getting my first vaccine on Friday at City Hall.
Oh, good for you.
But the next one won't be till 4 months. But
Right.
people have to listen. Stay home. Don't go out unless you have to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madeline. Thank you. Wow. 9 calls, 9 people in favor of stay-at-home orders right now. Rodney, what do you think, Rodney? Stay-at-home order, Rodney, yes or no?
Oh, yeah. Hey, need a stay-at-home, need proper enforcement, need a proper lockdown. Like, well, you know, the one after Christmas, that didn't really work because it was supposed to, it was supposed to be 1,000 for a week, 1,000 or less. We got close to 1,000. We opened up. I think we'd be in a lot better shape if we'd stayed for 1,000 for a week. We need, right now, the biggest thing that we need is all the shopping guidelines need to be legislated, need to be enforced. That's, you know, your mask, your 6 feet, your arrows, how many people to a grocery cart, you know. Hey, and then on the other humor side of things, I sent you an Easter Bunny cartoon last week. You were talking about the Easter Bunny a lot, so I don't know if you saw that, but ask David. Okay. And you should print it and put it up in your wall so you have a little bit of color. Okay. And then I missed another one. I started the wood stove with it. It was it was a carriage with square wheels with 2 of the nicest looking escargot pulling the cart with all the vaccines in it. You know,
all right,
that was
Rodney.
a few weeks before.
Good
so
stuff.
I'm going to let you.
Yeah, good stuff, Rodney. All right, man. All right, hang in there. Okay. Sometimes I don't know where he's going. That guy. 750-1310. 750-1310. I've taken 10 calls. Nobody. It's 10-0. People saying, yeah, sure, bring on the stay-at-home order. Let's see if we're going to add to it. Byward Market. David, should we have a stay-at-home order?
Well, not a formal one, I don't think, Rob, but definitely we need to do some changes. It's one thing I want to ask is why have we not had a curfew?
I don't know.
It's worked well for Quebec. We haven't even, tried the idea. The second thing is, I think the first thing we should do, since I said non-formal, is we should close the beaches, close the hangouts where all the young people are congregating like parks, remove all the benches on the Byward Market where people sit, or cover them up, do something. But just start with that.
Yeah, that's quite something, isn't it? I worked in the Byward Market for 20 years, and so the order comes down. You can't eat on your patio, but you can order takeout. So people go to the restaurant, they order takeout, and then they go down to William Street where there are all kinds of benches and chairs set up, and they eat there.
Well, right? So what's the difference?
The difference is in the restaurant, at least stuff is, properly spaced out because it has to be by law. It's wiped down after each patron sits there by law. There's contact tracing by law, right? None of this is happening.
Well, no,
they're just common areas, right? Because they're just common areas. So.
Yeah, if you recall the initial lockdown, the first one, all parks were roped off, all beaches were roped off, all benches were covered up. You could not sit anywhere, and we've got worse numbers now than we do then.
So
but
you
we
should go back to that?
To start, I don't think we should punish by locking everybody's business down when I don't think that's the true source of the problem. Just a quick analogy I'd like to make. You watched hockey in the 80s, right?
Did I watch what?
You watched hockey in the 80s, right?
Hockey in the 80s, yeah, sure.
Suppose you had a Bob Probert or a Marty McSorley or a Jay Chris Brown who was attacking another player, or
the goon,
anyway, they would get punished or suspended or whatever, and you go after them because they're the problem. I mean, what if you said, okay, you're going to the penalty box, but also Wayne Gretzky and Steve Yzerman and whatever, you're going to the box too. We have to make sure it doesn't happen by clearing the entire ice.
Oh, I see. So, okay, all right. Go after the offenders.
Yes.
Enforcement.
Yes, enforcement.
Okay.
Enforcement.
We didn't have, with all due respect, with the last, to Doug Ford, with the last stay-at-home order, there wasn't a lot of enforcement.
No, there wasn't. And it started off with that Elgin Street incident where the people were bar hopping and spread it. Nothing was done there.
Whatever happened to those guys?
You got to hammer down like Quebec's doing.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. All right. People are in the mood to get tough now. It's like we've elected a new cohort of Rob Snow callers to this show. Like there's been a change in government somehow. Nick in Canada, should we have stay-at-home order in effect?
Oh, let's make it 11-1. No, we should not have lockdown, stay-at-home, or shutdown.
Okay, why not?
Well, I'm a numbers guy, so we'll go through some numbers, and if I'm wrong, I think let me know. But to me, a pandemic, the number one thing you should stop causing is death. Those numbers have gone down considerably.
They have, yes, yeah.
People argue numbers have gone up in the hospital and ICU. For example, 2 days ago, the number of people in the hospital in Ottawa were 46 with COVID-related issues. With 5 major hospitals in our city, that means there are 9 people in every hospital on average with COVID issues. People talk about that the health system is overrun, that we have past capacity. Well, does anybody remember before COVID when we were talked about that people had to sleep in the hallways, that the hospitals were overrun?
Yeah.
What has changed?
Okay.
We're still overrun. So, and also another thing, last week, I think, they made a big issue about 1 million Canadians who had COVID. 1 million out of 38 million?
38 million, yeah.
32.4% chance of getting the COVID virus. Again, let's look at numbers. So a lot of time the media likes to use percentages. It makes it sound a little more scary, I think. When the COVID variant came out, we went from a 2% chance of getting the COVID to a 150% chance increase. So it went up from about 2 to maybe 3.5% chance of getting the variant. If using that same rationale, let's look at today's numbers. Ottawa COVID numbers have dropped by 28% overnight.
Yeah, I suppose that's one way to look at it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I mean, let's just.
Well, let's reopen everything then.
Well,
okay.
Why wouldn't we?
Okay, right.
You have a 2.5% chance of getting the virus.
Okay.
And from actually dying from it these days, if you're under 70, and most people over 70 are vaccinated, the chance of dying from it are like
Right. Yeah, you are right. You're right. Okay. Hospitalizations are up. Cases are up. ICU admissions are up. But fatal cases are down. Right.
And even the ICU is up, but it was up before COVID started. 2 weeks ago, they reported the number 3 causes of death in North America, most of the states, were number 1 was heart disease, 2 was cancer, and 3 was COVID. So what's those COVID numbers doing now besides causing...
All right. Gotcha. No to a stay-at-home order. No to a stay-at-home order. As part of today's data, the province is now reporting 510 people in Ontario ICUs. The first time that number has ever crossed above 500. I have it at 10 in favor of stay-at-home orders, 2 opposed, because the caller before the last caller said not formally. So I put him down as a no. He doesn't want a stay-at-home order. Jeffy? Is it Jeffy? Jeff?
Hello.
Jeff? Yeah? Hello, Jeffy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead, sir. Do you want a stay-at-home order, yes or no?
No, it doesn't work. It's not working.
Not working, okay. But have we done it here, right?
I've done it 3 times, haven't we?
Well, to varying degrees.
Well, to varying degrees. So
right.
How can you enforce it? You basically want to put the city in prison? Let me take away all of our rights, all of our freedoms? We need common sense right now. So
okay.
I'll tell you, here's my standpoint on it. When this thing first happened last March, we were watching, went from China to Italy, and we were watching this horrible thing happen where, to me, the biggest concern was, the most frightening thing was, who decide, people in power, the hospitals deciding who gets the ventilator and who doesn't.
Right.
Being so overrun that they had to pick who got to live, who got to die. Mm-hmm. That is not even come close to happening. We're dealing with a bad flu. And it's killing people that are immune compromised, which the number of people that are immune compromised don't even come close.
Well, it's worse than a bad flu, you would say. You have to admit it's worse than a bad flu. 24,000 people have died in a year from it, sir.
Right? So, yeah, how many people died from heart disease? How many people died from AIDS? How many people died from cancer?
Okay, AIDS is not the flu. You wouldn't call AIDS having late-stage AIDS. You wouldn't call that having a bad flu, would you?
No, I wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't, right? Having cancer, you wouldn't call that the flu, right?
It's something that causes death, right? We're not locking the city down because of these things. That's my point. My point is that the masses are suffering, losing their business.
Okay, okay. I got you. Your phone is terrible. I hate to cut you off. I'm not cutting you off because I largely disagree with what you're saying. I'm cutting you off because you have a bad phone. Get a new phone, and I won't cut you off. Okay, Mike, Ottawa.
Yes.
Yes. stay-at-home order. Should we have one?
Rob, this is absolute insanity. When you expect people to do the same thing over and over with a different result,
okay,
it just doesn't work.
So is that a yes or a no?
That's an absolute no. No. And the real issue here is we have to actually change the rules to make them work.
Okay.
You're not allowed to be in the swimming pool, which is the safest place on the planet. It's crazy. We have recalls right now on masks because now they're giving off some gas or something into your lungs, like
graphene. Yeah.
We have real problems more than COVID. We're creating more problems. So I say no. I say the people that have said yes, let's stay at home, are people like me who have already been staying at home. I don't have this stuff, and I'm staying at home, but I don't think you can do it. You've got your NHL flying up and down around the nation. You've got people that must go to work, so they're going to stop at some booth and show their papers to go to work or to go home. It's not a good thing. I'm totally against it, and I'm enjoying your show.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Okay. Current take on the calls is 10-4, so there's a comeback underway. Final quarter talkback hour, stay-at-home order. We have 4 medical officers of health calling for a stay-at-home order, and the Ontario Medical Association calling for a stay-at-home order, and a number of other things, travel restrictions, paid sick days, the whole thing. When we come back, nothing but calls, nothing but votes. We'll see where we are at the end of the hour on this one. Rob Snow Show on City News.
This affected us big time because when, you know how we are seasoned. We have clothes for the spring, clothes for the winter. That time, lots of clothes didn't arrive on time from Europe or from here because some factory shut down. So, and this put us in an odd position. We received not all the merchandise, part of the merchandise. And people, and for us, we have to be careful, you know, especially with the virus going on. Like, did affect the business, of course, like everybody else. We're not immune, and since the government helped, you know, this did a little bit good for us too, but still affected all the sectors, especially clothing. You know, you can see big corporation affected bad because nobody was like thought it's gonna be like this. You know, earthquake might happen, we joke about it before, things might happen, but this was like a third war, but with a virus. So how to survive, that's the question, and we're doing our best to work with the mall, especially rent in a mall is very high. The government, they have certain, let's say, condition, like how many people will be in the mall or in the stores, etc. Yeah, it's a big factor, but of course, if my store has a back doors, or just will be better, it will be much better. At least we can have curbside much easy, because we have to shut down completely, you know. And this left a mark on us, on everybody too. People always ask me, go online. Certain things you can't go online. Let's say T-shirt, certain product people don't know how to fit, but when it comes to clothing, like it's different completely. Let's say I have a customer comes, you can give him 44, but certain suit he might take 42, certain suit he might take 46. So, and how could, I mean, suit is not gonna fit the same. And I see people come back and they show me what they got online and not the same fabric. Mostly young people, but if you really want to shop, you have to go to the store because everything will be around you. You want to be sure the color look good, the fit will look good, especially when you spend, doesn't matter how much money, whether 300 or 2,000, you know? You have to try, you have to see what's going on. Please don't be shy, contact us. It will be a pleasure for me to take a suit or coat or anything. Like sometimes people have a funeral, they have things, they have a wedding, they don't want to come to the mall. If I get all the information, I will go and meet them at their home or their business offices. I'm gonna start doing that, you know, and this will help the business and help the people. Like they're afraid to come to the mall for time being, or they're too busy at work. They cannot go anywhere at a certain time, so I'm glad to do that.
on The Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
So these medical officers of health, the Ontario Medical Association, close them down tight. Review what really is an essential business. Close the schools. Have travel restrictions between regions and have a stay-at-home order. Because the times, they are drastic and they require drastic action. What do you think? 4 weeks. That's what they say how long you would need it to be in effect. Based on the best evidence. 4 weeks. 4 weeks of a serious stay-at-home order, 750-1310. And down the stretch they come during the talkback hour. Gary in Navan, home of the 50-horse hitch. Should we have a stay-at-home order?
Absolutely not, Rob.
Maybe just for Navan. What about just for Navan? Well, just around JP's General Store down there. How about that? Okay.
Right. Exactly. No, I don't agree with it at all. It seems the vast majority of your callers that do support it, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but they do seem to be senior citizens. I'm going to be paying this bill along with my kids and their children for many years to come. They just, I don't understand it. They just don't seem to get that we cannot shut everything down. I'm for wearing our masks. I'm for limiting the amount of people in stores, but we can't shut everything down. These officers, medical officers of health, things are drastic. Again, you're a numbers guy, Rob. If you just do the numbers today for Ottawa-Gatineau, well, that's 0.00027% of our population. And again, the PCR tests are false half the time. So, I mean, that number gets even lower. So, no, I'm not for it, Rob. We need to get things moving again. And there's just no sense to it. I'm sorry.
No sense to it. Okay. All right. No. Okay. Fair enough. PCR tests are false half the time. I don't know. Is that true? David says he doesn't think so. Okay. Good enough for me. Linda in Canada. Should we have a stay-at-home order? Linda.
Hello?
Hi, Linda.
Yeah, hi there.
Hi.
Yes, I'm at the point where the previous caller, I agree with him. There's all different components and compartments that you do agree and disagree with. Yeah. The trouble is that the stores are open. People are going in there with their children. At the beginning, there was only one family per household that was allowed to go into the stores.
Oh, yeah, even one person per household. Right?
That's right. Yeah. Now the kids are going in. The kids don't have to wear their masks. The kids are running around all over the place like it's a place to play.
I have not seen this myself, but David has taken a few emails to this effect that people are treating Costco or Walmart as kind of like Disney World, like it's a place to go for the day or something.
Yes, it is, though. And I have seen it firsthand.
Right.
And we're at a point now where it's unfortunate that, should we do a lockdown? I think we have to.
Okay.
Because people are taking advantage, like you said. They're taking and I have seen it firsthand where there are kids running around in stores without masks, and the parents are allowing them.
Okay. Thank you, Linda.
And I am an essential worker as well, so I have been working every day.
God bless you, Linda. What kind of essential work are you doing?
I work in a bank.
In a bank. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Linda. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye. Glenna, Canada.
Yes, hello.
We have a stay-at-home order. Glenna, what do you think about that?
I think so. I think so, yeah.
Think so?
Yeah. You know what? I watch a lot of TV because I'm old.
Okay, all right.
And I honestly can't believe the people that are out walking behind you, like three abreast, with no masks on. And most of these are younger people that I noticed.
Yeah.
And I think they should do something. I was talking to in New Brunswick the other day. I had to call down to Blue Cross, and honestly, the guy there. I'm from Moncton, and the guy there. We talked for a while, and I mentioned about the masks. He said, "You know what? Here," he said, "it's mandatory. You don't go out the door without your mask." So something should.
Well, it's pretty much mandatory here, just about everywhere. I don't think when you go walking, it's mandatory.
Well, it should be if they're right behind you. It's airborne.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Yep. Okay. Next, Cheryl, Ottawa. Cheryl.
Hi.
Hi. Stay-at-home order, yes or no?
No, absolutely not. Didn't work. It's not working. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think the curfew is, it's working. So I would be, I'd agree with trying the curfew and see if that works. Rule followers.
So try a curfew but not a stay-at-home order? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So you can still do what you're doing in the daytime. Everybody's home at night. And like when we grew up, my grandfather used to say, nothing is good after dark.
Nothing good happens after dark.
So
Okay.
I'll go back to those days and give it a try. Working on the Quebec side, why not try it?
Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I don't want a stay-at-home order during the day, but a curfew might go for that. Interesting. Joanne, Ottawa. Joanne.
Hi. Yeah, close the malls.
Close the malls. Okay.
What do you need at IKEA that you need to stand in line
Nothing.
to get?
Nothing.
Absolutely.
No.
And who's walking around the malls? It's not the senior citizens. It's the young kids.
Okay.
And they're the ones that we're worried about spreading it.
Right.
And you know what? Close the malls.
Close the malls. But what about, Dr. Etches is saying go well beyond that. Stay at home order. In other words, if you're not at home, we're going to give you a ticket, Joanne.
Yep.
You're good for that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
We got to get ahead of this. Too many people are dying.
All right. Okay. One more call. That'll be that. Serge Embrun. Serge.
Yeah, no lockdown.
No lockdown. All right, buddy. Thank you.
Doesn't work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Doesn't work. Thank you. Okay. All right. Final tally is, holy cow, it took a lot of calls in that hour. 5, 10, 13 say yes to a stay-at-home order. 7 say no. 7 say no. Okay. Busy hour. If I had done that thing 2 weeks ago, as I said, I think the results would have been totally the opposite. So I do believe that there has been a shift in public sentiment when it comes to restrictions and how things need to be handled. Just my own interpretation, having my pulse on the community, taking the pulse of the community. Totally off that topic into another hot one, and that's the housing situation. Red hot housing market, housing bubbles, capital gains on houses. When we come back, one of the top economists in the country joins me on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, April 6th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 7 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Newest provincial numbers on COVID-19 cases show an additional 3,065. 165 of those cases are in Ottawa, 22 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. There are 19 new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. 8 new cases in Renfrew. There are also 8 more COVID-related deaths recorded in Ontario in the past day. The new case numbers come from about 37,500 completed tests. 955 of the new cases are in Toronto, 561 in Peel, 320 in York Region. As cases continue to surge, Ottawa's top doctor calling on the province to take more action to limit the spread, including implementing a stay-at-home order. The measures should not include shutting down schools in favor of learn at home. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Medical Officer of Health Dr. Vera Etches feels tighter measures are required due to the rise of variants of concern, but closing schools isn't one of them. She tells the Rob Snow Show schools are one of the last places that should be shutting down.
In Ottawa, 98% of schools are free from an outbreak of COVID. 73% of schools right now have nobody who has tested positive for them where they've been actively infectious in the schools.
The doctor adds the city will look what restrictions can be implemented locally if Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health doesn't agree with the letter but feels the provincial framework is much more effective. Dr. Etches also feels the current vaccine rollout needs to continue targeting older and higher risk residents since those are the individuals ending up in hospital with COVID-19. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News time, 11:02. Now, it's not only the chief medical officers calling for stricter measures. With that story, here's City News reporter Chris Curries.
This wave worse than the first two, according to Dr. Raywat Dianandon, an epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa, who says at minimum a stay-at-home order is necessary.
We have to drive the numbers down to preserve the ICU capacity, or this entire house of cards crumbles.
COVID-19 biostatistician Ryan Imgren agrees, noting that our patterns are different now than in 2020.
If we think back to last April, it was not the exact same situation. We did not have as many cars on the road. So this, sort of a pseudo lockdown won't have a huge impact.
The calls are on the vaccine effort to be refocused towards front-facing essential workers. Chris Curries, City News.
City News time, 11:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Not a whole lot of weather activity around the Ottawa area today. Mainly sunny, our high 15 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy and low 3, and tomorrow sunshine and up to 18. The average high about 9 degrees. For today, the high 15.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 7 degrees. Ottawa East Minor Hockey Association, one of 10 across the country to receive a boost from Kruger Big Assist. Kruger is the maker of products like Scott paper towels and cashmere bathroom tissue. They awarded $10,000 to 10 associations. The cash will be used to cover the cost of registration for those families in need of financial help. The 10 initial winners were chosen from 450 minor hockey associations across Canada that applied. Another local association receiving some money in the Kruger Assist is the girls' minor hockey program in Gatineau. Kruger put up $150,000 and receives cash as well from the NHL for every assist this season. That contribution has added up to almost $30,000 already. The company says more of its cash will be doled out to hockey associations in June. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
What should be done to cool the red-hot housing market? The economics team at the Bank of Montreal has some ideas. It's all in a new report. One of the authors joins us now, Robert Kavcic, Senior Economist, Director, Economics at BMO. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
It's a great pleasure. The recent report released from BMO says policy makers, so the government, needs to act immediately in some form. Why do you say that, first of all? Why is action needed immediately? What is the risk here?
Well, the risk is that house prices run well ahead of what is sustainable by underlying fundamentals in the economy and the job market, and with respect to incomes and interest rates. And the reality is that this isn't a risk of something happening down the road. We've been seeing it since the fall, and it's got to the point where home prices are running at probably about a 40% annualized rate right now across some of the big cities and even some of the rural markets. And it's not isolated like it was in 2016, 2017. This is very widespread across most markets. And I mean, you're feeling it there in Ottawa as well, I'm sure.
Right. It's not a Toronto, Vancouver thing anymore. It's a Canada thing, right?
This is very much Canada-wide, and it's not an urban thing anymore either. This is spread well into rural markets, recreational property, cottage country. It's almost across the board.
What role does market psychology play?
Well, the concern is that it's playing the biggest role right now, and one of the reasons we've called for some action on this is that. For a long time, we've been arguing that home prices were rising because they should be rising, even though a lot of commentators out there were calling it a bubble or whatever the case may be for about a decade or so. The point where we're at now, though, is that it seems, and we can see confirmation in survey data, and we can see anecdotal evidence that there's more speculative activity, but it seems like what was a fundamentally very strong demand-driven housing market through the half of 2020 has started to feed on itself a little bit. And the reason that home prices have accelerated to the extent they have is simply because there's an increasing fear of missing out. There's a widespread perception that home prices are going to rise further. And with the Bank of Canada sitting on record low interest rates and promising that they're going to stay there, I think the expectations are getting further and further reinforced that prices can only go higher, and that in itself is what's driving this latest wave of price increases, and that's something that's not sustainable.
It's also creating a wealth effect, isn't it? It reminds me, it's very reminiscent. I was doing a nightly business show back in 99, 2000. NASDAQ 5000, .com, Nortel, JDS, Uniface, the whole thing, euphoria, irrational exuberance. And a great wealth effect. People felt wealthy. They would look at their investment accounts. How could you not feel wealthy? I think is it not fair to say the same thing is kind of happening today? I'm wealthy because of the price of my house, the equity in my house, the appreciation and the value of my house.
I'm sure it is. We're seeing it in consumer confidence surveys that we have seen confidence rebound very strongly, and big component of that has been what's happened with asset prices. The flip side of it is that central banks have been a little bit more in tune to the equality gap in the economy, like specifically in the labor market, because one of the features of the pandemic, of course, was the lower end of the pay scale got hit a lot harder. So one of the reasons that conceivably they're sitting on low rates for such a long period of time is to bring the low end of the labor market back up. The flip side is they're actually just driving a bigger wedge in the wealth gap because they're blowing up asset prices at the same time. So it's a bit of a trade-off from that perspective.
Okay, so let's go through some of the potential measures and their possible effect. First of all, you outline the Bank of Canada could say, the era of ultra-low interest rates is over and we're going to move into a cycle of tightening. What do you think about that?
If they believe that what we're seeing in the housing market is in fact an issue, that's the single most effective thing that we could see policymakers do, is back off from ultra low interest rates and change the guidance and change the psychology out there that rates are going to stay low for 2, 3, 4 years. Now I understand that monetary policy is kind of hamstrung by what's happening in the economy and the job market, but the reality is that fiscal policy has stepped in like we've never seen before, and in theory is probably doing some of the work that monetary policy would have done in the past. So maybe just the unique nature of this cycle and the fiscal policy response that we've seen maybe monetary policy doesn't have to act as it has in the past. Maybe there's some scope there to pull back on monetary stimulus, just with an eye on what's happening in asset prices. I mean that's technically not the Bank of Canada's mandate, so we're not expecting that to happen. But that is certainly the single most effective thing that can be done to cool house prices.
Okay. What about the bidding process?
So if we look at what's happening across a lot of the markets where we're seeing 5, 10, 15 offers coming on properties, the fact that the bidding process is blind, I would suspect is driving up the prices even more than they otherwise would be. Just simply because, I mean, if you're putting a bid on a property and you don't know what the other numbers are out there, rather than an auction style where you're incrementally increasing the bid until you hit your price, and you get much better price discovery that way in the market, you're throwing numbers on blind. And anecdotally, I mean, we've seen cases where individuals have paid $300,000, not above list price, but above the second ranked bid in the offer process. So it does take a very tight market and exaggerate it. So I think that's certainly something that we can address, but that's something that takes a while, and it's not gonna obviously be implemented overnight.
Okay, let's talk about the sacred cow, capital gains on primary residences. What do you think?
So we mentioned this in our report. Mainly to discredit the policy. I mean, I don't think politically it's going to happen, first of all. And I don't think it's really a policy lever that's actually going to do too much. First of all, it's very complicated. I mean, if we're going to start taxing capital gains on principal residences on the back end, then in theory, we have to probably open the door to things like interest deductibility and capitalizing renovations into the cost base of the property, right? So it's a very complicated change in policy. And then the other question is, I mean, does it really do anything? If you're a first-time buyer or a trade-up buyer looking to shift into a property with an eye on living in it for a long period of time or using it for a long period of time, a change in capital gains treatment 10, 15, 20 years down the road probably isn't going to impact your decision all that much today. So I think it's a very complicated and very messy policy change that might ultimately not do a whole lot in the near term.
How about building more houses? If it is supply and demand, there's a lot of demand and not enough supply, then create more supply.
Yeah, so the funny thing is that as much as we hear about this lack of supply, reality is if you look at the rate at which new listings are coming to the market, they're actually coming to the market across Canada 10 or 15% more quickly than they were in pre-COVID normal conditions. So there are listings, they're just getting completely vaporized by demand right now. So the balance is tilted that way. But in terms of new building, I mean, this is not a new issue, and frankly, we've been pointing to things like development restrictions and hurdles to bring projects to start and to completion, like on the regulatory side, for probably like 10 or 15 years. In Ontario, around the GTA, for example, this goes back to the Places to Grow Act back in like 2006, where we've almost by design created a lack of single attached housing in certain parts of Ontario. So for sure, like anything that can make the supply of housing more elastic or more responsive would help.
Okay.
But it's not gonna help today or in the next 6 months where this house price issue is starting to run off the rails a little bit.
What about more strict lending requirements, stricter stress tests on borrowers?
So this is a tool we've used in various forms. Again, going back probably 10 years already now, and the latest example was OSFI tightening up in through the 2017-2018 period on the uninsured mortgage space, and it was effective. I think the issue now though is that because we've already tightened mortgage rules so consistently over such a long period of time, the mortgage market itself is actually it's actually quite solid. And so, as an example, if you're walking to the bank today, you might be paying 1.7 or 2% on a 5-year fixed rate mortgage. But because of all the past mortgage tightening we've done in this country, you're qualifying at 4.79% today, I believe. So there's already a big buffer in there that is more or less insulated us from interest rate shocks and helped insulate the banking system. So I think tweaking around the edges of those changes that are already in place. Again, I don't think it's strong enough to actually change the psychology in the market today. People are still going to expect higher prices, and they're still going to go in and spend what they can in anticipation of prices rising.
Right. If one of the big problems is affordability, should government do more to help, say, first-time home buyers, for example, buy homes?
I don't think so. Okay. I think effectively what tends to happen in cases like that. So, say as an example, when Ottawa recently brought out their equity sharing program, or in the past they've opened up access to RRSPs, or if you go back to the 1990s, early 2000s, when they started to tweak amortization periods from 25 years to 30 to 35 to 40 to make it quote unquote more affordable. Effectively, what tends to happen at the end of the day is that affordability gets built into the prices and effectively just drives prices up even more. So it ends up washing itself out. So any kind of measures that improve affordability, quote unquote, just end up stoking demand, and that ends up just pushing prices up higher to the point where it scrubs out the actual policy change.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for explaining some of the options available to policymakers. Great pleasure to speak to you this morning.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me.
That's Robert Kavcic, Senior Economist Director, BMO Economics. Be right back. Back into the talk about lockdowns, shutdowns, gray zones, paid sick days with the head of the Ontario Nurses Association on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I wanted to give gifts to my volunteers, so I started making, I knew this is a skill I had, so I made chocolate that had a cultural based with a teaching, because culture here is not just a little part, it's the large part, it's the fundamental part of our organization. So then we started doing, just little programs, and we sell a few at a fair. And then we started getting contracts. People were starting to enjoy the chocolates, and started getting more and more contracts all across Canada. Then we decided to become a social enterprise, and we were able to create 2 jobs. And Val is one of our chocolatiers, very talented. We were able to help her with employment.
We started just with a little bit in the kitchen, doing a little bit of chocolate together, and next thing, it's just kind of taken off. And it's great, because I love to be creative, and we get to create a lot and make up stuff, and it's just I just love it. It's just great that we get to make money back for Wabano, and it's helping me out, and we're helping just everybody out, Wabano and everything.
We met a very socially conscious business owner being around town, and we decided to partner, because beans and chocolate, coffee and chocolate are sort of created the same way, and there's and they're very one origin bean, so it was a good pairing together. And it's been a fantastic partnership for both of us.
I was fortunate enough to get introduced to Pierrette, the head of Wabano Fine Chocolates, through a local networking group. And I was completely intrigued by the social enterprise that she was running, and then I looked at what we were doing, trying to support local business and supporting local communities, and it was a perfect match, and it's been fantastic ever since.
We make every batch by hand. We temper it by hand to get to the consistency it needs to be to make a good chocolate. And one of the best, also wonderful things we did, we've connected with Ed, with being around town, And our coffee bars have been amazing hit. So we're really excited about the connection with our coffee.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Lockdown, shutdowns, gray zones, stay-at-home orders. Let's get into all of it. Paid sick days, too. Doris Grinspun is here, CEO, Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
How are you,
Good.
Rob?
How are you? How are you?
I will be better when I don't need to do all these interviews to convince my premier to do a complete lockdown of this province with no movement from region to region. I will be a lot better because we have 510 people in ICUs today. Young people fighting for their lives, Rob.
Okay. So you want a full lockdown? Full
lockdown, complete lockdown, restricting travel between regions in Ontario, between provinces, and in fact between Canada and other countries, because we are inviting the P1 virus, not the UK one that is already here and awful, the Brazilian one that doesn't respond well to the vaccine. We are inviting it.
Okay. Describe maybe, Doris Grinspun, for somebody who may not know. I mean, we hear about this record number of people in ICUs. What is it like to treat somebody in intensive care?
Well, just picture anyone in your family that is very young, whether it's an essential worker or someone that finished university, starting a life, fighting for their life in an ICU. That's what we are seeing today. Fighting for their lives in an ICU. People that were completely well before, maybe even going to a mall as they were in the weekend jam-packed. It is a disaster. People do not understand, Rob, what's going on. People are clueless. Those that go to the malls are clueless what's going on until it touches someone close to them. And we are at a breaking point. Health professionals see that every single day in ICUs. They cannot handle it physically or emotionally, but this is about the people. This is about the people that may not live or may struggle for years to come, not about our health professionals that are struggling with it. It's about the people fighting for a breath.
So full lockdown, shopping malls closed, businesses closed, restaurants closed, stay at home. And I'm assuming that if you go outside, you're going to get a fine or you're going to get a ticket or something like that. That's what you want, right?
What has happened in other countries where the situation is dire. We are out of control. The virus is out of control. The virus doesn't take a break. The virus' job is to find a person to hook on. That's how viruses spread. That's their job. They're not even trying to kill people, the viruses. They need to find how to spread, and the virus will find it. Okay. So it's our choice. If we want more and more people suffering, the health system breaking down because it's already, so people with other conditions like cancer, heart attacks, etc., people with COVID that may not get in because we will not have any more where to put them in.
Yeah. This is, I mean, we're still paying the price for the first wave when it comes to that. Just at the Ottawa Hospital, I had the CEO of the Ottawa Hospital on the show a couple of weeks ago. They're behind by 15,000 procedures just at the Ottawa Hospital.
We are going to have a summer from hell. I don't like to use those words, but we will have a summer from hell if we don't put full brakes now, Rob. It's all I can tell you. We will not have a day in the summer. It will be beautiful outside, even more than now, and then we will need to be in complete lockdown because we didn't do it before. And we will regret it because we will get to 4,000, 5,000 new cases a day. We will get to ICUs that will turn people away. Listen, this has happened in other countries. It's not that we don't know. Yeah. We know what we need to do.
So you're saying it's inevitable, right? It's inevitable. Well, if we don't do it now, we're going to be doing it later anyway.
It's inevitable if people continue not to listen and the Premier continues to think people will do what they want, what they need to do. People are not doing what they need to do. You saw the weekend.
Okay. You're also banging the drum on paid sick days. Your organization has been on that from the earliest days of this.
If your listeners, any of them, does not have, first of all, minimum wage in the warehouses, and does not have the day to go and get the vaccine in whichever lineup, bring the vaccines to them. Hopefully the Premier will announce this afternoon. We have been asking, bring the vaccines to them. We have 7,500 home care nurses, Rob, that can also bring vaccine to homebound patients. They see them every day because they go to do wound care, to do IV treatment. They could have the vaccines in their backpack and give them the vaccine. That's not happening. Teachers, we had a teacher in the weekend, 48-year-old teacher intubated in an ICU. That's not normal. A person perfectly good before she got COVID. What are we doing to ourselves? So if people are not willing to behave, and that means all of us, then the Premier needs to put the brakes regardless of the politics of it.
Okay. Thank you, Doris Grinspun.
Thank you.
Yeah. CEO, Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. Now, just on vaccines and this idea we're going to bring the vaccines to people where they work. John Tory was on Breakfast Television. That's our corporate cousins in Toronto, the great breakfast television show out of Toronto, and he said they're looking into it at the municipal level.
Well, we're hard at work on this now, and either Chief Pegg or Dr. Davila can talk to you, but I can just say to you that when we talk about a retooling, maybe it's a way to sort of take us to the next phase and to making sure that we use even more resources to get even more people vaccinated, and that involves some of what I referred to earlier. It involves going out wherever we can to workplaces that are at higher risk and vaccinating on the spot, so that then it's much easier for people to get vaccinated in a place where they're much more likely to contract the virus. It involves what we're already doing, going to neighborhoods, but in increased numbers, in neighborhoods where there is an increased area or element of risk involved with regard to the vaccines.
Okay, so that was John Tory on Breakfast Television this morning. We're going to get into schools. You have the schools in Peel are closed by order of the medical officer of health there. Schools open today in Ottawa, and a defense of that decision from our own medical officer of health, Dr. Vera Etches, on my program this morning. Marit Stiles, we kind of get some political reaction to all of this. She's the Democrat MPP for Davenport. She is the education critic for the official opposition, Queen's Park. So she's going to join us right after the 11:30 news. And the Prime Minister is doing his 11:30 thing, too. We'll listen to some of that. On the Rob Snow Show, City News.
Local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, the 6th of April. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buchan. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, mainly sunny skies and 8 degrees. Here's what's making news right now. Provincial health officials reporting 3,065 new cases of COVID-19 and 8 new deaths due to the virus. The numbers out of over 37,000 tests. 1,161 people in Ontario are hospitalized with COVID-19. 510 are in ICU. 310 of those are on ventilators. Public Health Ontario reports 165 new cases in Ottawa. Yesterday, the health unit confirmed 237 new cases of the virus and 1 new death. Elsewhere locally, Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit confirming 16 new cases and 11 of those in the past 24 hours. The province is reporting 22 new cases in Eastern Ontario and 8 new cases of COVID-19 in Renfrew County. Quebec's Health Minister, Christian Dubé, is asking regional health directors to move swiftly to shut down operations that aren't following COVID restrictions. He's citing the spread of the more contagious variants and pointing out the law does not require them to wait until an investigation is complete before closing a location. 5 municipalities south of Quebec City entered a lockdown last night, which includes a curfew and closure of non-essential businesses and schools. Quebec is reporting 1,168 new cases of COVID-19 today and 4 more deaths. There are 87 new cases in the Outaouais. I'm Sarah Buchan. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
COVID in the schools. COVID in the schools. Ottawa schools open. Peel schools closed. Marit Stiles is the NDP MPP for Davenport. She's the opposition education critic, the official opposition's education critic, and joins me this morning here on City News. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, nice to talk to you. What did you think of the decision by the medical officer of health in Peel to close the schools there for 2 weeks?
Well, I mean, every region is going to be different. Some medical officers of health are certainly looking at their region and making some tough calls. I think what's noticeably absent in all of this is leadership from the province. And I think once again, we see regions, we see cities having to pivot, and communities and families having to pivot on short notice, with little consideration being given on the provincial side to what their realities are. And I'm worried. I'm worried about our schools and our kids because this has been a rough year already, and here we are again.
Yeah, shouldn't parents, the Peel school board, the district school board there in Peel, big public board, a big school board, Marit. I mean, like 150,000 students, 15,000 staff. Doesn't everybody deserve more than a day's notice? I mean, less than 24 hours notice. If you're, how are parents supposed to make plans with less than 24 hours notice?
And I think what we've seen happening now is we've seen this government. Last week we were in the legislature. I was asking on Thursday morning. I was saying to the Minister of Education, you got to make a call. What are you going to do? People have a right to know. We're heading into a long weekend. Things are not looking good in some areas of the province. That's for sure. And people need to know. They're worried. And in fact, we had directors of education in some parts of the province warning people that they were likely going to get closed down next week in areas where they didn't end up doing that. So, I mean, there's just a lot of confusion. And I was asking the minister for some clarity here, and we just got more word salad, in the legislature. And I think that's unfortunate because I think, it does show a level of disrespect. And then, some of the medical officers of health, I don't blame them for making those calls. I mean, I think that they're making the calls they think are the right ones. But what's lacking here again is I think respect from the government and clear communication and less chaos.
But Mr. Lecce, your colleague on the government side, the education minister, has he not been consistent in saying we think schools are safe? 99% of schools don't have a case. These kinds of things. Isn't that's always been the message from the government? Marit Stiles. Right?
Well, they've said that, and then they've also said what we're going to put in enhanced safety measures. Where are they? They've said that they were going to increase asymptomatic testing. They were going to improve ventilation. They were going to decrease class sizes. We haven't seen any of that. They continue to throw these numbers around, but the reality we're seeing on the ground in some regions more than others, certainly, has not been consistent with what he's saying. And I would say, at the same time that he's talking about keeping schools open, and believe me, I am an advocate of keeping schools safely open. Okay. But at the same time, he's off there talking to the federal government and chastising the federal government to get more vaccines to keep schools safe. I think that at the end of the day, the government has been hiding behind a lot of their rhetoric, and we see the impact in the confusion and the chaos in our schools.
I had Dr. Vera Etches on my program this morning. I'm going to play a clip. I just wonder if the school setting, the classroom is really as dangerous as some are making it out to be, as the teachers' unions, for example, are making it out to be, and whether a lot of fear is being whipped up needlessly and maybe even irresponsibly. So I put this to the experts, Marit Stiles. I want to know what the experts think, and this is the top doctor, the top public health official in our city, and this is what she said this morning.
Children are more likely to get COVID in the community than in the schools, and the same for teachers. The community transmission is what is driving COVID levels up, and is what's introducing COVID into schools. So the schools are not the place where children are typically picking up COVID.
Classrooms are not a driver of transmission. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Of all the people that test positive, when we send the cohort home, usually we do not see transmission within that cohort. And we've studied that for variants of concern as well. We've asked everyone to be tested when they've gone home and there's a variant of concern at play. And we did not find that there was greater transmission in those situations.
Okay. Classrooms are not a driver of transmission. That's the public health officer here in Ottawa. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that in some jurisdictions, it's managed better than others. In regions like where I live, in the Greater Toronto area, we have a different thing happening here, and certainly some of the public health officials here feel a little bit differently about how that spread is happening. But to me, the issue is simply, as these things peak, and we are seeing more transmission in schools than we have been, we are certainly seeing some public health units are starting, like in Niagara region, have decided to just go around the government and start vaccinating education workers in this period now, as we're about to head into April break. They're seeing an opportunity here to get that work done. And I think that would do a lot. I mean, at the rate we're going now, education workers, teachers and others are not going to be vaccinated until after June. And that seems like a missed opportunity. If we want to make sure that they are safe, that they're protected, that our schools remain safely open, what we're hearing from the experts is that we really need to be focusing on, increasing and certainly prioritizing the vaccination of those workers. There's things we can be doing like that right now that would make a huge difference. Okay. Should schools close? I mean, again, every region is handling it differently, but I do think that the provincial government has not been helpful in their very confusing messaging around this.
So there's a technical briefing happening right now for the media with some people responsible for kind of the on-the-ground mechanics of the vaccination distribution program from the provincial government. When it comes to your file, education, what would you like to hear coming out of that? How could the vaccination distribution plan better serve people working and attending school in Ontario?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, we got to do everything we can right now to get as many needles in arms. There's no question, and I think the government has clearly kind of bungled this, but we can fix it. We can do better, and we should be doing it 24/7. In terms of education workers, I think there's a lot of evidence. It's pretty clear now that we should be prioritizing those workers, and we have an opportunity to do it. One of the things that I know has been proposed by some boards, some experts, is actually doing it in the schools during April break, vaccinating education workers that way and ramping it up. We've seen other countries do this better, clearly other provinces too. We are lagging way behind. And if we want to make sure that our schools remain safe places for our students and that we limit the transmission in schools and throughout the community, it may take efforts like that. So I hope that we'll be hearing something like that today. And I also hope we'll be hearing, not necessarily specifically on vaccination, but I want to hear this government move to provide paid sick days, which across all sectors is a key factor in how we're going to fight COVID-19.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Marit Stiles.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Stay well.
Yeah, you too. Marit Stiles, New Democrat, Davenport's the riding, education critic for the official opposition. The Prime Minister speaking right now. This is the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau.
This is the time to do everything we can together to get as many people vaccinated as soon as possible. From day one, beating COVID-19 has been a Team Canada effort. Last summer, we delivered $19 billion through the Safe Restart Agreement to support the provinces and territories on what Canadians needed to get through this crisis. That money has helped with everything from additional staff at seniors' homes in Alberta, to modeling in BC to help keep communities safe, to mobile testing in Nova Scotia to reach rural areas. Today, we're delivering on the final installment for that Safe Restart Agreement. Our priority is for funding to go where it's needed most, whether it's for patients in hospitals, PPE for essential workers, or COVID-19 testing and screening for people on the front lines. Tout comme le premier versement.
Just like the first investment, the $700 million investment announced today under the Safe
Prime Minister repeats his opening remarks in French, we will stop here, and then hopefully when we come back, the Prime Minister will be taking some questions from reporters in the press gallery. This is The Rob Snow Show, Rogers TV and City News.
To opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, where I had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me, I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song for my heart. And yeah, and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what their grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food, food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian. So all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches. We focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked. I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that would bring all people around me. And yeah, all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Untitled Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to, I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box and do it.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
So we're going to go back to this news conference in just a second. Dr. Tam speaking now. Did you watch any of the baseball game yesterday? The Toronto Blue Jays, they moved on. They're playing a series with the Texas Rangers. Now, Texas is wide open, right? No restrictions.
I just saw the pictures on social media, but it's quite a sight.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's the front page of the Globe and Mail this morning is a big color picture of that. It's a strange sight. I watched a little bit of that Jays game yesterday. Nice win by the Jays. They're playing really good baseball. But pretty much sold out. Looked to be just about sold out. Capacity in that ballpark's like 41,000. Looked pretty sold out. Masks were supposed to be mandatory unless you were drinking or eating, but honestly, that's what I was most interested in, was actually scanning the crowd, looking at masks. I didn't see a lot of mask wearing going on. But then I was looking, you know, David, I pay attention all the time to this Bloomberg vaccine tracker. And they have a lot of data on every individual U.S. state and how it is progressing with its vaccination program. So Texas has a population of about 29 million people, and it will have achieved herd immunity, which according to Dr. Fauci is 75% of the population fully immunized. According to Bloomberg, Texas will achieve that 3 months from now.
3 months
from now. 3 months from now.
Midsummer.
We'll have achieved herd immunity.
Before I've even had a first shot.
Yeah.
Great.
It's quite likely I won't have a first shot, you won't have a first shot. And 90-year-olds will just be starting to get their second shot.
Yeah.
And in Texas, anyone over the age of 18 can be vaccinated today. Today.
Starting today.
Yeah, you can go to the CVS, Walgreens, and be vaccinated today in Texas. And this afternoon at 3:45, Joe Biden is going to announce that is going to be the policy in the United States, in every state, all 50 states, as of April 19th.
That's the kicker for me.
Right.
2 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks.
13 days from now.
13 days.
Yeah. I talked to my father in Nova Scotia on the weekend. He is 73. And what are people my age asking their parents when they talk to their parents? Hey, have you been vaccinated? Do you have an appointment for a vaccine yet? The Nova Scotia government, nobody from the local health authority or anything, they don't even have appointments yet. Texas is doing 276,000 doses a day. They are doing more doses a day in Texas than we are doing in Canada on a daily basis. We're doing about 163,000 a day in Canada now. See, Doug Ford says we can do 150,000 just in Ontario. We're doing 163,000 across the country on a daily basis. 28% of Texans have had at least one dose. And it's 15% here have had one dose. It's 28% in Texas. It's 15% in Canada. 16% of Texans have had two doses. So, and it's not even 3% in Canada. It's like 2.8% as of this morning. Okay. So more people in Texas have received two doses than Canadians have received one dose.
Great.
You know what I mean?
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good start,
In
guys.
total, Texas has done, just in raw numbers, 13 million doses have been administered in Texas. In Canada, it's 6.5 million for the entire country, right? It's a big state, 29 million people. But we have 38 million people. They've done almost twice as many doses as we have. One state. So, I hear a lot of people looking down on the fact that the game was wide open and it was close to sold out. And, oh, my God, how stupid are they in Texas, right? And it's, okay, fair enough, okay. You can wonder, hey, are they crazy in Texas, in the Lone Star State? Maybe they are crazy. Or maybe we should look in the mirror and wonder if they're so stupid in Texas, then what does that say about the people running the vaccine operation in this country? If they can deliver those kinds of results and they're stupid, how is it they've managed these superior results compared to all the superior people running our superior program here in Canada? They had a sold-out ball game yesterday, and we've spent the morning talking about going into another lockdown. Uh, 11:52. Let's join this news conference here.
Response prioritizes interventions that will support good health and safe recovery, building in actions to address inequities in our response makes us stronger and more united. I know that we are all tired and looking for a break, but now is not the time to let down our guard. Please continue to follow local public health recommendations. Stick to the safer habits we've learned and get a vaccine when it is your turn. The bottom line is no one is protected until everyone is protected. Thank you.
Afternoon. We'll now turn to questions from media. We'll start on the phone. One question, one follow-up. Operator.
Thank you. Merci. Please do not hesitate to press star 1 on your device's keypad. N'hésitez pas à faire étoile 1 sur votre appareil. Première question, Marie Vastel, Le Devoir.
Question, Marie Vastel, Le Devoir. Good morning. Can you hear me? I am getting an echo.
You think we would have figured this out by now?
My question is for you, Mr. Trudeau. Maybe Minister Haidu may want to add. I would like to know what you have arrived at when it comes to the vaccine passport. In the United States, the CDC has changed its regulations recently for travel, saying that people who have not been completely vaccinated will still be at risk. There's lots of problems at the borders. We have family members who've been separated and also businesses. So do you intend to relax the rules for those who are completely vaccinated, particularly for the United States, so that maybe vaccines should proceed quickly at the border? Answer. Thank you very much for your question. Many people are thinking of what they can do this summer, thinking about trips and family visits, but we are not yet there. We are still in the middle of a very serious third wave. People must be very careful in the upcoming weeks for us to flatten the curve. That is the main priority. Of course, we all hope to be able to reopen the borders so we can start traveling in the coming months. We shall continue working with our partners in the United States and elsewhere in the world to make sure that that is done the right way. We have already seen the importance of vaccines for international travel before the pandemic. It's going to be important, but when it comes to the details of what we've done, we are still working on them. But of course, as you said, it's not right away. We are going through a third wave, and we must continue hanging in there for a few more weeks so that we can really flatten the curve and allow that the vaccines that will arrive in millions in the coming weeks have an effect. Patty.
Well, thank you very much. And the Prime Minister is absolutely right. Now is not the time for Canadians to be thinking about traveling as we work so hard to flatten the curve. And we, thank the many, many Canadians who are sacrificing in ways that we see, in ways that we don't see. I'll just say that on the topic of vaccine passports for international travel, of course, we remain committed to having those conversations with our international partners, because however that conversation evolves, we want to make sure that Canadians have the right kinds of documentation for future travel.
Yes, Marit?
Oui, merci.
Thank you. I understand that it's not something that will be done tomorrow, but in other countries, progress has been made with vaccines. It's not really time for Canadians to travel, but some people have received 2 doses of the vaccine elsewhere and may want to come back here for business reasons or for personal reasons. Are you making progress on that front? Are rules going to be relaxed for people who want to come here if they are completely vaccinated? What do you intend to do with people who were vaccinated with a vaccine not approved in Canada? If people receive, for example, the Chinese or Russian vaccine elsewhere, these vaccines are not recognized in Canada. Will that be accepted as proof of vaccination when they come here? Answer. That's a very good question. The reality is we will rely on evidence at every stage. We will continue looking at studies. We will continue working together with our partners like the United States, who may take some measures before us, but we will make sure.
So we're going to leave this. The Prime Minister is taking questions right now. Our parliamentary correspondent here at City News is Cormac McSweeney, and he'll be filing all the latest breaking news and developments on the federal scene. We also have people at Queen's Park. Right now, there's a technical briefing happening from the Ford government. I mean, literally right now. Reporters are learning more details about what the province is doing on its side of the vaccine.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.